Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
That's where they get angry with me today. Angry Rollo's the best Rollo, man. We need to channel that anger. Not that angry. I'm probably the most melodic people for a long time. So today we are going to talk about the Manosphere, misogyny, and the red pill. Do all those adjectives, nouns, whatever you want to call them, go together? Coming up. Thank you. No Greyhounds today, but I do have a special announcement. Oh. That's enough of that. Did you guys like this picture? Hey, you're welcome. Okay. This is actually, this was you. God, I feel like I got to clarify things here a little bit. This is actually from a very famous picture from 1963. This is not well, I guess it is the Rage Against the Machine, their original album's cover, but this is where they got it. This was a Buddhist monk. His name was Thich Quang Duc. I think that's how it's pronounced. I actually tried to pronounce it today. Who self-immolated because of his country's policies. It's just basically political activism in the extreme. Yes, Vietnam, Saigon. So there you go, 1963 Saigon. Just thought I'd clarify that. Everybody sees that picture. You see this, that's actually one of the most famous shot pictures in like world history, I think is what it was. So today, oh, you know what? I got one other thing for you here. Look, I found him. Here he is. That's the hot guy in the foam cannon party. I couldn't resist. Somebody sent this to me like 5 minutes before I was getting ready to come on, and I'm like, oh man, there's a hot guy in the foam cannon party. I'm going to keep that loaded so we can use that anytime every time I make that reference. I don't think a show goes by that I don't make the hot guy in the foam cannon party. Which, of course, if you've read my first book, you will get the joke, right? Today, we're going to talk about the Manosphere, misogyny, and the red pill, and what all of those things mean. Now, the reason why I wanted to get into today's topic is I've had this guy referenced to me as far back as I think it was April. Was it April of this year? Look, yeah, April of 2020. I actually know who Sam Vaknin is. It's interesting. There is a group of I guess psychologists or clinical psychologists, maybe not as like hip as like Dr. Sean Smith, but there's sort of this. I think there is a group of psychologists right now. Sam Vaknin, Russian guy, a legitimate doctor. We'll get into that here in a little bit. That guy, and then there's another guy, and I can't remember his name, but I guess he's a clinical psychologist, and he does just these quick hit videos. He's got a YouTube channel where he kind of goes on and gives advice, I guess. You can also, you could probably throw Dr. Taylor Burrows in there too. Dr. Babe Love, as she's affectionately known in the Manosphere. These are legitimate as they come, like people who have their doctorate. They have a PhD in something. I believe Taylor has hers in like marriage counseling or something. Maybe it's psychology. Who knows? I know that, of course, Dr. Sean Smith he's a clinical psychologist. That's why we call him doctor. This guy is also a doctor. I don't know if he's technically a doctor of psychology, but that's what he practices anyways. So I'm going to get into that a little bit today because I've been seeing a lot of videos coming up these days about really the misinterpretations and the misrepresentations of what exactly the manosphere is, what exactly the red pill is. And I have almost 2 years ago, coming up on 2 years, I did the State of the Manosphere address at this convention I used to do, and still one of the most well-watched videos on that particular channel. And it's interesting to come back to some of the stuff that I hate to say I was like predicting things, but because I don't try to predict stuff. I just sort of, like I said, I'm all about pattern recognition. So when I see sort of trends and I see where things are sort of going, both in the manosphere and just in sort of the world in general, I can, like I said, I connect dots. I would say probably 90% of the time I correct those dots accurately. Sometimes I don't, but for the most part, I'd like to think I do. And so it's good to come back to those things. One of the things about this sort of day and age right now, and I apologize again for the lighting in here, I'm actually, if one of these like panels in the back here, this acoustic stuff comes back, if it falls off the wall, it's because I am rearranging things in the studio right now, and I'm actually trying to get the dog cam to look different too, but I am trying to find a way to affix those things to the wall and make them actually stick when it gets hot. The problem with this studio, it gets really hot and then really cold, and then that has an effect on like the little stickum stuff that's on there. So apologize for that if that happens, but whatever. You don't care about that. You know nothing. So I was referred to this video by Dr. Sam Vaknin that we're going to talk about today, because a lot of the stuff that he talks about are really kind of misinterpretations, I think, and it's different to me when I hear it from guys like this. I have done, I don't want to take down videos, but I've done like sort of analysis videos or breakdown, let's call them breakdown videos of guys like, I forget the dude's name, from like Pinnacle of a Man. I've done that actually on this channel, and then on John from Modern Life Dating, and I think even Rich's channel, we've done some. John and I last Monday, a week ago tomorrow, did a breakdown video of his interaction with yeah, I know. Thanks Sam. Yeah, I realize that. I know, stick them to the wall. I got to find some siding or something like that, because the actual Oralex doesn't stick to the wall. I have to put it on some sort of backing and then put it up on the wall. But anyways, I have done breakdown videos before of like, well, what's wrong with the manosphere? Why do these people think that there's something wrong with the manosphere? Well, usually it's guys like 33 Secrets, or it's like Pinnacle of a Man, or whoever else we've been talking about. John from Modern Life Dating, as I said, was doing an interview of this girl. I just call her Cooter Pageant Girl. I don't know what her real name is. Like John would probably, I didn't care enough, I guess, to really sort of memorize her name, but we did a breakdown video of what she was talking about. And I think that a lot of what she was saying when it comes to like the manosphere is just really misinformed or malinformed. I guess maybe that's like, if malinformed is a word, I think it is. But just like sort of deliberately misled about like what those manosphere guys are talking, like to some people, like I think to lay people, or like people who are just like sort of normies, right? I think that the manosphere ends up being sort of this mysterious kind of right-wing, like fringe cult of guys who are just like tearing their hair out over, I can't believe women today, and they're all angry. All right, that's the number one thing. I don't think I have. Did I do? Maybe I did. I might have done a show on anger with Pat Campbell back in the day, but I don't think I've done anything recently about anger. And I wanted to sort of touch on that. If you look at the show notes that are in the yeah, I see you in there, John Sonmez from Bulldog Mindset. Yeah, I get it. I got an alert from the, I'm not going to name her name, but the woman who was trying to arrange that. I still might do it. I'm not saying I will. I'm not saying I won't. I just have to sort of check my schedule at this point. So I might actually do that breakdown with you as well. I don't know what else I'm going to say besides besides what I've said with John, but I'll give it a shot. Put it this way, John Sonmez, I will give you my best effort. So what I wanted to get into here today is I think maybe even starting with anger might be a good start here, because a lot of guys hit me up in email and they'll say, Rollo, I'm in the anger phase, or I'm in the I'm in this like sort of despondency phase. Like how do you cross the abyss, right? That's what I refer to it as the abyss in, like, I think book 2 in preventive medicine. And when I talk about like the black pill, or what I call now the doomers, because I don't even really want to, like, at this stage, I don't really even want to conflate sort of the doom pill with MGTOW, because I realize that MGTOW is very broad spectrum. So if there's like the sort of like the most hopeless nihilistic end of MGTOW, that's like the doom pill. I think they even call it that, right? Doom Tao or Black Tao or something like that. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but the more despondent, sort of hopeless guys. And I think what's happening right now is we get every 4 years, 5 years, you get this sort of new blood injected into the manosphere. And I've been at this long enough to see those cycles come through. And so what happens is, and I got caught in the middle of this as well. And what I can remember this. Okay, so and maybe you guys do too. There might be some guys in the chat, or some guys in the who've stuck with me for a long time. Do you guys remember when I was locking horns with RSD? Real Social Dynamics. That's Owen Cook and RSD Max and RSD Julian and RSD, Schmo. I don't know anybody, right? These guys, I think it was the first guy was RSD Jeffy or something like that. I can't remember, but this was back in the day when RSD, Real Social Dynamics, they were still actually doing game, and they were still more interested in intersexual dynamics than they are in sort of like the positivity grift, right? The woo-woo magical thinking. Tony Robbins with a lot of tarot cards and astrology and, Brazilian power crystals, right? They made a sharp turn towards that as a profit model right around 2016. And people ran me up the flagpole for saying that that's what they were all about. And now here we are in 2020, and guess what? I feel pretty vindicated right now, because that's all they do. That's all they're about right now. You go and you look at like Julian Blanc or Owen Cook. They still do videos together, but it is not. If you took those videos and you compared them to the ones that they have already erased and scrubbed from YouTube, which you can't go do now, it's not even it's like night and day. They're not even the same people anymore. I go and I've occasionally I'll go and I'll just sort of freshen my memory with respect to like mystery methods sometimes, because people will ask me about like a game, like where do I learn game? And so I'll go back and I'll look at some of the videos of mystery and the Venusian arts and all that kind of stuff from back in like the early 2000s. And you go and you look at Owen Cook and you listen to what he's talking about, and it's like, again, it's not even the same guy. Because it's all a grift, man. It's all just sales. And I said this back in 2014, and people just threw rocks at me and just wanted to, whatever. And I think the reason why I got kind of dragged into all of that was because there were guys who were going to their seminars at that time. There was guys that they would, and seminars is the nicest way I can put it. They put, they did these convention type things. They always had like the summit, they did summits in Las Vegas. They did summits in South Beach, I think in Florida. I think certainly Miami. I know that they did that. And then there were some other places too that they did them, but I think those were the two primary places that they did them. And so I was seeing these videos where guys from the audience who were like, they would take questions, they'd be, Jeffy or whoever, I don't know, whatever, RSD Schmo would do their presentation. Then they would take questions from the audience, and invariably in that audience, somebody would have a copy of my book, and they go, "What do you think about the rational male? What do you think about what he's saying here?" It got to the point, I think, where they got it. It was so common, because this was like really it was 2014, 2015. Remember, I published the book in October of 2013, and so it was kind of getting to the point where it's unignorable. And they had to say something about it. And I don't know that there was like some sort of like RSD wide policy for how they're going to deal with Rollo Tomassi and the rational male. And I have talked to Owen. I have had, email exchanges with Owen before. I don't have anything like against him particularly. I will say this is that he is a hustler. And so is Julian, and so are a lot of those other guys. They are in what I call the hustle economy. That'll be in book 4, by the way. And so we've gone from the gig economy to the hustle economy, and he was definitely at the forefront of the hustle economy. And so I as much as I like the guy, and there's a lot of guys that I work with that I could still say are hustlers, but I still work with them because I have sort of this, I understand where their head is at. I understand what their underlying message is, and I'm willing to work with that. But I'm very careful of that these days, particularly after what happened with that other convention. So when this was 2014, 2015, and so we're starting to get all of these guys saying, what do you think about the rational male? And I think it might have been Jeffy, it might have been Max, I don't know who, but a lot of these guys were saying, well, it's truth, but it's truthful anger. And that was, I even wrote about this on my, right around 2015, I think, 2014, 2015. Even if you go and you go into the search section of my blog and you go truthful anger, type in truthful anger, you'll find those essays from that time where I was talking about that. And the problem is they had to do that. They couldn't deny that what I was talking about in the book was truthful, that it was women's nature. It was what was real. And that's the red pill, right? I mean, that was waking guys up from this sort of misunderstanding, or this blue pill conditioned understanding of how things ought to work as far as intersexual dynamics is concerned. And so when my guys, but the guys who are reading my books were listening to what was going on in RSD, they were like, well, how does that gel with what Rollo's truthful anger is all about here? So they had to say it was true, but they couldn't just let it sit there. It had to be anger. And so it's like, well, Rollo's he's on point, right? He's spot on, but it's so angry. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it just like eat your soul, right? I'm a rat. I'll just chew right through you. That's anger, and it's like that. Remember in Red Dawn where the guy's like cleaning his gun? He goes, "All that anger is gonna tear you up, son, or burn you up." And he goes, "Yeah, but it keeps me warm." But now I'm dating myself. Maybe that was in the remake too. Anyways, but it's this anger, and anger is an easy thing to misattribute to guys. It's very easy to do that because, and I'll tell you why, because there is an evolutionary reality that goes along with this sort of misdiagnosis, I guess, of is a guy angry? And men will always have to deal with what I call the male anger bias. And if you go and you look in the description here, I as always, I give you related reading material. And one of those links is called the anger bias. And what the anger bias is, and I need to explain this before I move on to the video, because I'm going to refer back to the anger bias a lot here. Because what happens is in our evolutionary past, it made good sense. It was a survival adaptation to misattribute anger to men's behaviors, because men tend to be more angry, right? Where they are at least perceived as being more angry. We're certainly more aggressive. Every feminist on planet freaking Earth is going to tell you that, well, it's men who are the more violent ones. They're the ones who commit the more crimes. They're the ones that like kill people the most. They're the ones that like are assault and battery, and they'll rattle off all of these stats. Like, yeah, we are. Okay. But see, the thing is like that's a biological reality of being a man, because you have testosterone. Men have between 12 and 17 times, if a healthy male has 12 to 17 times the amount of serum testosterone in his body than women do at any one time. This is something from the book as well. Is like my brother was an amateur circuit bodybuilder way back in the day, like back in 95, 94, 95, 96, somewhere around right in the mid 90s. And I used to I was like coming out of my rock star phase at that point, but I've always worked out. I've always been part of that scene with my brother when he was doing those things. So I'd go to his shows and everything else. And we used to know this one woman who started taking anabolic steroids. And the first thing out of her, like, I think she just finished her first cycle, or she was just getting into her first cycle. And because she wanted to be like one of these yoked, I don't want to say Corey Everson, but like, she was just like one of these big, she just wanted to bulk up. And that's how some female bodybuilders did it. And she told me this. She said one time, she says, I don't understand how you guys can live like this. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, I am horny all the time. It's like, it increased her libido. Like that was the first thing. And she's angry, and she was like, kind of like frustrated. And granted, this is anabolic steroids, so there's a roid rage kind of thing that goes along with that. But I don't think that women really understand that the feelings that, like, when you get onto sort of, if you can simulate men's testosterone level inside of a female body, women would lose their minds, because there is that level of aggression. There's that level of determination. There's that I don't want to say frustration, but it's like more like, we as guys, we don't think of it in those terms because it's always on. Our sexuality is always on. Women's is cyclic. So ours is primarily based in testosterone. And when you put that into women, that's when they get upset. That's when they get angry. That's when they get, they start turning into guys, right? And we're going to talk about women turning into men here later on when we start looking at Sam Vaknin's video here and what he's talking about. Because again, this is about the Manosphere, misogyny, and the red pill. But when it comes to anger, evolutionarily speaking, it made better sense for women and children to presume that when a man is showing certain like behavioral cues, that he's angry, because the women and children who didn't presume that daddy was pissed off, or that man is angry, or don't get too close to that guy because he's showing behaviors that show aggression. And the ones that didn't, err on the side of that guy being angry were the ones that survived and went on to reproduce. So, and again, this is theoretical, but there's a lot of work on this, and I tend to buy into the idea that there's a male anger bias, meaning that women, even today in this, we still use the male anger bias to excuse things or to justify things. Like, women will always say that, like, right now, do you want to know why the Duluth model of feminism is so endemic to our society? It's based on the male anger dynamic, or the male anger bias, that men are always angry. Men are always the abusers. Men are always the ones who are the aggressors in the family. And to an extent, that might be true. But we're still dealing with an evolved and evolutionary dynamic that is leading to social dynamics, that is leading to the way that we deal with one another. And when in the past we were like, okay, well, we need men to mellow out, man. We need men to, take a pill. We need men to emasculate themselves. Like, we need men to be more feminized. That's the anger bias side of it, the macho side, the disqualifying masculinity side of all of that, was primarily based on the idea that men are like posturing all the time, and that men are inauthentic all the time, and that men are angry all the time. Because if you don't watch out, then those men are going to hurt you. So men took that upon themselves and said, well, I'm not like that at all. And so if that's what women want, then I'm going to be more chill. I'm going to be less angry. I'm going to go along to get along. I want an equal partner. I'll go along with all this other crap that I'm being told is what women want right now, because that solves my reproductive problem. But the male anger bias is not necessarily something that doesn't exist. It does, but it's the way that we deal with it that is very gynocentric right now. So when in the past, if a woman saw a man who was like showing, behavioral cues, let's say signals that he was angry or frustrated or, are pissed off, women, and she'll, okay, come over here. Let's stay away from daddy. Let's stay, let's get away from the bad man, because the bad man, there's going to be something that's going on between the bad man and another bad man. And they're going to fight each other and kill each other, or there's something's going to go down. Again, this is the tribalistic side of human nature. It's like the war brides thing, right? Well, women were the spoils of war. Children, I mean, to a lesser degree, maybe, but pretty much, if you presume that the guy was angry, then it was you had to err one way or the other. It's better to presume that he was angry than he wasn't, because if he was, then it might save your life. So like when we see statistics right now where we say, well, and I said this yesterday on Rule Zero, which by the way was on Ryan's channel, if you're looking for that. It was actually a really good show. We talked about independent women. I toyed with the idea of actually doing that today, but I think I said enough. So if you want to watch that, it's really good. It's about the myth of the independent woman. And I talked about this yesterday, which was that men tend to overestimate their let's say women's interest in them, whereas women tend to underestimate men's interest in them. And that is an evolutionary thing, right? Because it is in men's best interest to err on the idea or err on the side that a woman is more into him, because our mating strategy, our innate mating strategy, is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. So it behooved us, it was pragmatic for men to presume that a woman is more into him than he like actually is to that girl, to that woman, right? For reproductive purposes like sex and arousal and attraction and all that good stuff. So it's better for men to presume that it used to be. Now, remember, all the stuff I'm talking about is kind of prior to the sexual revolution. Women, on the other hand, would tend to underestimate men's interests because it works in their own evolutionary advantage, or their mating strategy's advantage, to filter out guys for honest cues. So it's better to sort of like be more cautious and err on the side of caution for women than it is to say, oh yeah, let me go get with this guy. Now that's kind of changing as well because of our modern society and because of the internet and because of the sexual revolution. But prior to the sexual revolution, it used to be that men were the ones who would overestimate women's interests and women would underestimate men's interests. It's also correlated, let's just say, and I didn't say cause, but it's correlated with the fact that women will underreport their sexual partners, whereas men will tend to overreport it. So, and I think that's also changing a little bit now. I think women are far more comfortable in being as accurate as they possibly can with the guys that they've had sex with. Like they're proud of their notch count today. And for men, they're not proud of their notch count, because that notch count ain't what if they're honest with themselves. I mean, if you look statistically at the GSS studies, between 18 and 24, most men, 80+% of men aren't getting laid. Whereas women, it's dropped a touch, but not enough to sort of warrant the huge decline in sex on men. So what's happening is women are having sex with guys who's still having at the same rate, or maybe just a touch less, but at the same rate as they have been all this time. Whereas men between 18 and 24, that demographic, that cohort right there, they're not having as much sex anymore, if they're having it at all, because millennials don't have sex. And it's not some moral thing. I would say it's a societal thing, and it's a technological thing right now. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But I wanted to reestablish and make sure that I told you guys about the male anger bias, because that's where all these guys go. So when RSD was saying, well, Rollo's, he's right, but it's so much anger. That anger, that presumption that men are angry, is used to disqualify anything that you have to say. So if I say, if I point out hypergamy, if I point out the soulmate myth, if I point out even statistics that show that women control most of the wealth, that they're the primary consumers in the United States, if I point out anything that is in any way unflattering to female nature, and I can back it up with stats, I'm angry. He's angry. What's the first thing that women say? You're bitter. You're a bitter misogynist. Hey, that's what misogyny is, right? It's the hate of women. Where does that come from? I'm angry at women. First of all, I will tell you this. Let me just get this out of the way. No one very few people, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. Very few men that I have met hate women, like genuinely have this visceral hatred for women. In fact, most guys who are like anti-women, who don't want to have anything to do with them, they don't read my book. They don't have no use for them. They have no use to come online and start talking shit and just talking all stuff and whatever. They have no interest in doing that. So why? Like, why would they bother? What is it? The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So really, the guy who is misogynistic isn't the guy who is here quoting unflattering statistics about women. It's the guy who's indifferent to women. He's like, right now, the reason I do this is because I'm very much interested in women. I love women. I love my wife. I love my daughter. have enjoyed the company of women for a very long time. It's just knowing what they're about. And that throws people, because as soon as you are in any way brutally honest about women's nature, you say anything unflattering about that nature, it seems like an attack. And I figured this out early on in my writing career and my writing for So Suave and everything, is that the moment that you say something unflattering is the moment that somebody says you're bitter, you're a misogynist, you are, who hurt you, right? There's a presumption that somebody hurt you. I did that. I think I saw this. I did an interview with Andrew Hale earlier this year. It was back in January of this year. And one of the first things he asked me, and him being, I don't say he's a noob, but he read my book before, but one of the first things he asks me is like, what happened in your past that made you want to, like, turned you into who you are right now? And I hate that question, not because it's like, it's disingenuous, because a lot of people, that's where they're going to start, right? Well, what turned you into this woman-hating, misogynistic, angry man that made you so bitter? Like that, there's that presumption is what pisses me off. It's the presumption that they're like, so you're not normal like the rest of us, so something must have happened to you in the past. Something must have burned you. Something must have destroyed your soul. And so now this is your catharsis, right? For you, this is how you're dealing with it today. This is your cope. And it's like, no, this is not my cope, man. This is like, this needs to be said. This needs to come out. This needs to be articulated. That's the first thing people say about my books. I'm sure anybody who's read my book say, I've had guys tell me this. They'll say, I always knew this in the back of my head. I just couldn't put it into words. And they would say, you have a way of articulating this that I don't have. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I do this, because we haven't had access to this kind of information all at once in the history of humanity. I hate to gloss myself and pat everybody. Well, gloss you guys too, everybody who's been part of this for so long, but we're really on the cutting edge here. We're really on something that has not been done before. And it's scaring a lot of guys. It's going to scare this guy, Sam Vaknin. It scares guys like Dr. Sean Smith. It scares guys like Robert Glover. It scares guys like, even Tony Robbins, right? It scares guys who are already in it because it's first of all, it's a threat to their way of life. It's a threat to their revenue streams, but it's also shakes up ego investments that they built careers on or built their personalities on. And so the only recourse is to say it's truthful anger. You're angry. There's something wrong with you. You're not normal. Who hurt you? What happened in your, like Andrew Hale, what happened in your past that turned you into this abnormal thing? It's like, no, dude, I'm just as normal as you are. I just analyze things and I read things and I put things together. I connect dots. And if I wasn't doing it, somebody else would be doing it too. Again, I don't want to pat myself on my back, but it's like, somebody would be doing what I was doing. I don't know as accurately, but who knows? And I try to do my homework. Like people will say, well, you don't cite your sources. And it's like, no, I do. It's just like, there's a lot of them. And 9 times out of 10, when I do, people will go, that's a shit source. Forget it. You don't need that. I get that. There's not enough people. Or was it independently funded? Was it peer reviewed? Was it? It makes no difference, because when people have ego investments in particularly the unflattering aspects of women's nature, when that's brought to light, guys want to go, he doesn't speak for all men. I'm not like that. He's not normal. He's angry. He's bitter. He's a misogynist. There's something wrong with him. Like they want to duck, like, oh, no. Or else they want to go, he doesn't it's like that blue pill alpha kind of thing. Like, he doesn't represent mankind. I do. Let me tell you something. I'm Clark Kent. What did you say here? Giga Chad. Thank you, Giga Chad. Men are mad at the feminine imperative for lying to men and hiding the truth of female nature, hypergamy, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to talk about this right before. I'm just now seeing this. So here's the thing, is I don't think when it comes to anger that the guys that critics, noobs, guys who are on that sort of the outside looking in, when they see what's going on in the manosphere, when they see the discussions, when they see this, yeah, there's a lot of guys out there who are just like, all they want is red meat. All they want is pro-revenge, right? That's all they want. They want to sort of like live vicariously. Like they don't actually want to go hurt anybody, but they get off on the idea that some woman somewhere is getting her comeuppance. And I talked about that in the revenge episode of this show a while ago, gosh, probably months ago. And so, yeah, are there guys who like kind of get off on the idea that, oh, finally, karma? I'm not a believer in karma, by the way. Just so you know, it's not like, I don't think that there's some sort of cosmic balance to the universe. I think that like some people are going to screw some people and other people are going to be getting screwed. And unfortunately, that's the way things work out for most of the time. But I think there's this sort of this desire, this want for some kind of cosmic justice. And particularly when your thing is like, you've been hammered flat by women your entire life, that might be your like women go to The View to watch things, for pro women stuff. Well, there is definitely a view for red pill men these days. And people have found out that it's very lucrative right now. So I would be careful with saying that it's about like the anger is about women lying to men. I don't think that women have been lying to men. Does that sound a little odd to you? I think that women have been doing exactly what they're doing without really even having any kind of malicious intent. Like lying to me seems like, okay, I know the truth, but I'm going to mislead this guy on purpose. Right? I'm not going to tell him. No, I think that women will do what women will do. Because, and you ask any woman about hypergamy, you ask any woman about her mating strategies, or remember I keep talking about women women have an ease with cognitive dissonance as long as the outcomes of one of those conflicting, the conflicting ideas that cause the cognitive dissonance, if the outcome of those ideas is an optimized hypergamy, they have no problem with that. It's not that they're doing that maliciously. It's not that they're going, I'm going to screw this guy. That's not what they're thinking. It's not, in fact, it's not even a conscious process. It's just something that's been going on. So, but I think what happens is now that we have access to more information in the manosphere, in the red pill communities, it used to be the PUA stuff. Now it's moved on to like, oh, well, now we're MGTOW. Well, okay. MGTOW to me is just sort of like a prescription. The red pill is more the praxology. So, as far as the praxology is concerned, where all that information is, guys will see that and they'll read that and they'll go, oh man, this really makes me angry, because they think that they've been on sort of the sharp end of the stick with respect to like women's mating strategies, or being misled to believe that that women are one way when they are really not. And then I think what really pisses guys off, you want to know why guys are angry, is they're not so much angry at women. And I think that's the thing that gets a lot of guys in trouble. Because the presumption is when you say something unflattering about women, it seems like you're angry about women, or you're hating on women, or you have some sort of like anger. And it's not about that. It's about being angry at yourself. It's about not seeing it beforehand. I'm such an idiot. And you're thinking, why did I do those things? I wish I would have had this information before I made those decisions that ruined my life. That's where the anger comes from. Not from like, oh, I hate women because they're all they screwed me, or they took me to the cleaners or whatever. No, most guys are mad at themselves. They're mad at the idea that they're mad at the idea that they wasted a lot of time. Life is finite. You get one, like you only live once, right? You only have so much time. I'll tell you, man, I had every reason to be pissed off at the BPD girl that I got involved with back in my mid-20s, because I look back at that. And if I have any regrets in my life, I have like this many regrets in my life. Really, I do. The main one, the only one that I regret really the most, is having spent as long as I did with her and not figuring it out earlier, because that's time I will never get back. And it's valuable time because it was in my mid-20s. And it's not like if there's, I'm not saying I'm angry because I learned something from it. I think now, being my age, I can look back on that and go, okay, I would not be Rollo Tomassi if that didn't happen. So yeah, sometimes you got to go through hell. Like I said, what experience teaches harsh, but it teaches best. So like when people tell, and this is the most stupidest, disingenuous question anybody, or like people will poll you on Twitter. What would you tell your 18-year-old self? You know what? Your 18-year-old self would tell you to go pound salt. That's what would happen. Your 18-year-old self would get out of here, boomer. Okay, boomer. That's what your 18-year-old self would tell yourself right now. So don't give me this crap about like, oh, I tell this is how I would change my life. It's basically, the question is not that. The question is, what do you regret in life? You might as well ask that. You should just ask that. How would you steer this generation right? Well, I wouldn't do these things. I would have learned this sooner. Don't go and say, oh, what would I tell my 18-year-old self? Because your 18-year-old self, just like the guys that you think are going to benefit from like what your elderly wisdom, those guys, they don't care. They're not going to do it. Like, oh, go and get into crypto. Nah, screw you, old man. I'm going to go down and drink at the bar. And they get to 30, and then they're asking the same question. What would I tell my 18-year-old self? That's just stupid. All right, this is aside. This is an aside. But you know what really pisses me off these days is I am done, particularly in a political sense, but I am done with guys asking stupid rhetorical questions for which they know the answer to already. But they ask the question anyway because they think by asking, they'll, I've never thought of it that way, Tim Pool. I've never thought of it that way. Was it Paul Joseph Watson? I've never thought of it that way. Mike Cernovich, I've never thought. Thanks for asking that question because that really made me think differently. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make anybody think any differently, okay? Stop it with the rhetorical questions. Start getting with the answers. Start going, you know what? Here's what we've seen. We've had 20 years of the 2000s. We have all this information. We know the answer to those dumb questions. Don't ask them anymore. Give us some solutions. Show us what we should do. Where should we go? What should we do? But they don't do that because asking questions is how they make money. The solutions is people, you will make more money off of problems than you will off of solutions. Always. So keep that in mind. Sorry, that was an aside. So anyways, I'm gonna get into this thing because it's kind of, I'm not going to play the whole thing, just so you know. I realize that it's like a 30-minute thing. I don't want to get too much into there. What has he been doing here? Flamio. Sam Vaknin has been linking to this page today in response to people asking questions about the relationship. About relationships? Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah, I know. Sorry, I probably gave him some oxygen. But anyways, let's go. And here's the thing. Another standard caveats apply. Okay. When I talk about anybody, I'm not attacking that person. Okay. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's certainly well read. I looked at his, matter of fact, let me look at this real quick. He has 113,000 subscribers. Not too shabby. And let me look at this rest of this thing here. And his I wanted to read this to you just so you guys get an idea. Sam Vaknin has a PhD in philosophy and physics and is a professor of psychology in Southern Federal University in Rostov-on-Don in Russia, and a professor of finance and psychology in CIAPS. I don't know what that stands for. He served as an economic advisor to governments and multinationals and founded the Healthcare Committee of the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Macedonia and collaborated with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Health Organization. More about his work in psychology. Okay, so now you got a background of what this dude's all about. I just wanted to put that out there because a lot of you guys probably, when you see like sort of dudes just doing videos in their living room or something, they just seem like, who's this guy? So that's who this guy is. Let me go and, you know what else I have to do is go to my mic and turn off the audio processing. And yes, I will turn off my mic for this. I got in trouble last time. Let's see. It's my Chrome tab. There it is. Much better. And go.
And like Freddy Krueger, I'm back. My name is Sam Vaknin. I'm the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. And today, we're going to discuss the manosphere. The mainstream media would have you believe that the manosphere is that niche in cyberspace where misogynistic men congregate in order to plot how to exact revenge upon incalcitrant and exploitative women. But there's a lot more to it than this. The manosphere reflects the congruence and confluence of several very important social and cultural trends. And it is comprised of disparate elements which disagree with each other and even harshly criticize each other. So to generalize this way is both inaccurate and misleading. Let's start with pickup artists, PUAs. These are communities of men guided by self-imputed experts, so-called experts, who purport to have found the exact sequence of buttons to push to get a woman to succumb and offer access to her body. So if you follow their recipes, there is no woman in the world who will be able to resist. Of course, pickup artists fail to see the irony. Like home-broken and trained puppies, they jump through hoops held high by females, and they adhere religiously to a script that is written entirely by the fair sex. It's kind of
Sorry, my bad. Thanks. Sorry, I was muted. Anyways, I wanted to say this is that his Sam Vaknin's appraisal, let's say, of PUAs it's based on old data. It's based on the idea that PUAs are caricatures. And everyone from MGTOW to MRAs to Doomers to Tradcons even still use the impression that sorry guys, the impression of this sort of Leisure Suit Larry guy. Their impression is what of Mystery, wearing a big fuzzy hat and black fingernail polish and all this other stuff too. So that's an easy boogeyman. It's easy to hate those guys. It's easy to say, well, those guys are inauthentic men. It's easy to use PUA, like the old impression of PUA from back in like the mid 2000s, as this caricature. He's a cartoon character. So it's easy to point out, you don't want to be like that. You want to do what I'm doing. You want to follow my program, whether that's MGTOW or Purple Pill, or it's what else? Tradcons. Like, you want to follow these programs instead of this because you don't want to end up like this guy. And it's kind of disingenuous, I think, because they're using the sort of imagery of a mystery as a PUA, like, or John, like from Modern Life Dating. They see that and they go, oh, that's what PUA is all about. Or Myron Gaines. Like, Myron Gaines is a good looking dude, right? And no homo, but he's a good looking dude. And he runs Game and he knows what he's doing. So it's not like Game has evolved, but when people criticize Game, it's usually based on old like stereotypes or old archetypes, like old caricatures of like the enemy. And that's really where we're going with this. The other thing is that he's presuming that these routines don't work. So this is something we talked about way back in like the mid 2000s on SoSuave, which was, if Game didn't work, nobody would be talking about it. No one would feel threatened by it. Everybody would laugh at it and they'd move on. They would ignore it. Am I still muted? I'm not muted. Am I? No, I'm not. I'm not muted. Can you guys hear me okay or not? Muted. Oh, he's muted right now, not me. Hang on a second. My mic is muted? No, it's not. Can you hear me now? Tell me, put 1 in the chat if you can hear me right now. Yes. Okay, good. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. We're going to continue here. Sorry. I have to mute so you guys don't get that stupid echo.
You want to sleep with me? You have to go through these motions. You have to act clownishly for hours, and then you may succeed. I have even less respect for self-disparaging and self-loathing incels. These guys whine constantly and pathetically about being shunned by women and how they have a God-given right to sex, by force if need be.
Let me unmute here. All right, so here's the thing: this is also another sort of deliberate misperception of MGTOWs, of incels. There is this presumption that incels believe that they are owed sex. You want to talk about a guy who is steeped in the feminine imperative, and I don't want to say feminine imperative, I want to say in feminine thinking. And you can hear the feminist thought that comes through in all of this. A lot of the rest of this is going to be very much, he's very pro-female in this whole thing. Most guys who are in the sort of the clinical psychologist profession right now, they have a vested interest in keeping things like balance, or trying to keep things balanced in the face of what RSD used to call, a truthful anger, right? It's true that what they're saying, but they're just angry. So because their motives and because it comes from a place of anger, you can dismiss it. And I think this is nonsense because, first of all, I've written 4 different essays about being owed sex. Like enthusiastic consent, yes means yes, no means no. Transactional versus validational sex. The idea that men believe that they are owed sex is a tactic that women use on beta men. It's don't come, or it's like the nice guy, right? The nice guy. I really, if you're a nice guy, and I think I've done at least one episode on this show about the nice guy. If you're a genuine nice guy and you will want to be friends and you have this genuine like niceness to you, most guys would like to be nice. I would love to be a nice guy. Like there's lots of guys, even alpha male dudes who would love to be nice, but that nice doesn't get you laid. Nice doesn't get you from point A to point B. And yeah, are there naturally aggressive guys? Yeah, most men are naturally aggressive, right? To some degree. We're naturally competitive, I should say. Let's not say aggressive, but they're naturally competitive. And because we are human males are rooted in competition. And that competition is a result of women's hypergamy, because women are looking for dominant males, the guy who is the best of the best. That's really where hypergamy comes from. It's not about marrying up. I mean, that's part of it for sure, but it's about who do I want to breed with and who do I want to have a long-term relationship with? Alpha seed, beta need. How does that work? Well, what that does is because men instinctively and probably through, evolutionary, evolved mental firmware realize that they have to be competent and they have to be dominant. That's why we have men when we deal with each other, it's all based on merit. It's usually based on merit. It's usually based on competition. Who's the best of the best? Who won the prize? Who gets a trophy? Let's see. Who's more competent? Who can fix that problem? We got a problem over here. Who can fix that? Who has the know-how? Who has the skills? Who has the strength? Who has the dexterity? Who has whatever to fix this problem over here? You're more competent than Joe. Guess what? You get something Joe doesn't. That's male nature. And so when we think about things in those terms, yes, we're thinking about them in an exchange, meaning like, I did this, I get this prize. I got first place, you got second place, you got third place, you got fourth place. There are certain commensurate things that go along with that. What he's thinking is that all men are going to say, well, because I did this, then you're going to give me that. And particularly now in this day and age, right after the sexual revolution, the nice guys see being nice as a way of getting laid. Now, I feel really bad for the guys who are genuinely nice guys, because they would genuinely like to be in a situation where we didn't have to worry about it. We're all, sitting around the campfire in drum circles and singing Kumbaya, but that's not how things work. But there are guys that genuinely think that. And then what happens is the women who see this happening, they see the nice guy, they read right through it. And it's easier than ever now in the new order, in this new internet new order, because women don't believe nice guys are nice, just genuinely, organically, unsolicitedly nice. They think that there's always something going on there. And that's what he's going right here, because he has a feminine mindset, that he believes that like incels think that there should be some sort of exchange. And that's not what it's about at all. In fact, for incels, it's not about the sex. We've discussed that 100 times on this show and on Rule Zero. If it was just about the sex, they'd just be sitting at home jerking off. That's all it would be. But they don't. That's not enough for them. They want the connection. It's not about you owe me this or you owe me sex. No, it's you owe me some sort of connection. And that's what gets them all upset. I'll show you an email. Well, it was an email. It's a 4chan post that I was actually going to build an essay off of. But it's sad. It's very sad. But it's not about an exchange. It's about a connection. That's what incels want. It's not a tit for tat thing. It's not a quid pro quo. It is, and it's certainly not about sex. It's about a connection. And he was right. He does catch up to that a little bit later here, and I'll let you guys see what I'm talking about.
These are the black pillars, the people who took the black pill. Some of these misfits even undergo extensive cosmetic surgeries to fix their alleged facial deformities.
Jaws are sized.
It's a form of body dysmorphic insanity known as look maxing. Now, black pills, red pills, blue pills, these come from the movie The Matrix, where people were given pills which allowed them to see reality for what it is. And other people took pills which misled them to regard the Matrix as reality. So
I feel like it is incumbent upon me to explain why we call it the red pill. The red pill has the earliest I have ever used the term red pill was in 2004. That's the earliest I can. I know I've used it before that, but if you go and you look at my very earliest history of posts, like my forum posts, like just like typing stuff in, back in 2004, we were using the term the Matrix and the red pill back as far as that. So it's not something new that just cropped, like people just pulled out of their butts to, today. Okay. It's not something that Candace Owens and alt-right political people pulled out of their butts either. Okay. It's been around for a very, very long time with respect to, like, I mean, remember the Matrix movie came out in 1998. And we started using that terminology as at least as early as 2004. So you're talking about 6 years before, since the movie up until we started using it as a terminology. And it was used, I'll tell you this, at least this is from my experience, because I've used the red pill for a long time now. Red pill is it is in a way, we used it in the reference that he's talking about here. But what we were using it as is it was in reference to the Matrix, because we talked about the Matrix being like what you believed about women and intersexual dynamics, and then sort of unplugging yourself. In fact, I still use that terminology today, unplugging. Like I say, unplugging men from the Matrix is dirty work. Unplugging men from the Matrix is like triage. I've used those are quotes that I've used a lot in the last almost 20 years right now. So the red pill is not just like, oh, it's some schmaltzy thing that we pulled from the movie The Matrix. It's the best analogy, let's just say. It was the best way to sort of capture the idea, because it had already been done before, and it was something that people could wrap their heads around.
If you take a red pill or if you take a black pill, you're exposed to reality as it is. You wake up.
No, it's a blue pill, not a black pill.
You wake up from the Matrix, and you are able to discern what is really happening and to defend yourself or protect yourself from untoward machinations and stratagems, especially by women. Red pillars, as opposed to incels, are more benign. They claim only to have seen the light and the true nature of women as rapacious and psychopathic entities who leverage the institutions of society to their unbridled and disempathic benefit. So say the red pillars.
No. I think I've put this in an essay somewhere. Maybe I even picked it up from someone else. I'm not really sure, but the red pill does not exist to make you hate women. The red pill exists so that you won't hate women for what they can never be to you. It's the red pill is based from an intersexual dynamics perspective. The red pill is based on pragmatism. Like I keep saying, I cannot stress this enough. The red pill is a praxology. It is a study of human behavior. Now, if you want to talk about MGTOW, that's a solution. Here's what we're going to do. We're not going to do anything, right? We're just going to give up. We're just going to stop it, or we're not going to make women the and pardon me for saying this, MGTOW guys, but like there's so much variety in MGTOW that there's only one underlying principle that I can recognize in MGTOW these days, and that is this: is that you don't make women the measurement of the metric by which you live your life. You cease to make women the most important thing in your life. You cease to make women the driving motive for your life. And okay, it sounds a lot like mental point of origin, to be honest, which is a concept I came up with back in 2008. But okay, fine, that's good. We agree. I 100% agree. But it completely counters what Sam's saying here, which is like, it's all about hate, or it's all about, it's all about these damaged poor little boys. And you're going to hear him talk, you're going to hear him say this here in just a second. What a feminine mindset does, what a internalized understanding of female correctness, an internalized understanding of gynocentrism, an internalized understanding of feminism and the feminine imperative. What that does to a guy is it presumes that correctness is anything that is unflattering or anything that sort of deviates from that female correctness is misogyny, is evil, is incorrect. It's the wrong way to think. Really, that's what this is. You're not thinking correctly. You need to get back on course. You need to come back to the plantation. So it's not about hatred. It's not about hating on women. It's about understanding your position. It's about understanding the game that you've been involved in since the time you were 5 years old. That's what it's really about. It's not about like creating these fiendish strategies to, I'm going to get this girl in a bed, and PUA might have been that way for a while, but it wasn't. Even then, most guys, and Sam, if you're watching this, PUA was not about like learning these rote memorization of scripts of here's what you say and here's how you do these things. And It was more about getting guys, first of all, to change their minds about themselves, to actually get out in the field and approach women and talk to women and actually get, involved. And sure, they're going to fall flat on their face. Were there hustlers? Yes. Are there still hustlers? Yes. But the original intent, I think most of the guys, particularly back in the old days, back in 2002 till about 2012, that 10-year stretch right there, most guys who got into PUA got into it because they wanted to get a girlfriend. Not because they wanted to up their numbers. There's guys that did. And those were the guys we focus on. The PUAs that we focus on were the guys who would judge notch count as sort of like their personal worth or their personal value. And I don't even think those guys really even did it that much. They were just following their biological imperatives. How can I get unlimited access to unlimited sexuality? Now we get it. Now most guys get it through pornography. But back then, and even prior to that, you're trying to remember, game existed long before, long before all this stuff that happened. It was just everybody has game. It's just how effective was your game and what is it based on? What is it informed by? Every guy including Sam here, has some idea of how to go from being sexless and single to being in a relationship, getting sex and forming a family, maybe later forming a family as a result of that. Everyone has game. How effective that game is and what it's based on, like the education, your knowledge, your social understanding, what it's based on, that's the real question, not the game part of it. So you'll hear guys will criticize pickup artists and the early guys anyways, but really all they're doing is finding a more efficient way to get from point A to point B. And like I said, for the most part, the guys that you know of that were effective and good at getting laid and were good at increasing their notch count, those are the only guys you hear about. There are millions of guys who practice game, and they did so because they weren't getting any results. So remember, what is it? You only get what you've gotten if you keep doing what you have done. That's mystery method right there. You only get what you've gotten if you keep doing what you've done. These guys wanted to learn. Why is it shameful? Why is it bad to want to learn how to get laid? Well, of course, what he's going to use is the same I won't say shaming, but the same sort of rationale, which is, well, you're just a dancing monkey. You're inauthentic. Well, what are guys who learn guitar to get laid? What are guys who go to the gym to get laid? What are guys who build a business? What are guys who go to church every day because in their youth group, there's a hot, cute little girl that they want to get with? Are they being inauthentic too? I don't think so. That's the game. That's the best way they think that they can get from point A to point B. We don't call them PUAs, but they're doing the same damn thing. I did a full episode on this. It was why you will always be a dancing monkey, why you will always do triple monkey backflips, why it is in your innate nature as a man to want to show off, to want to stand out, to want to be at the top of the dominance hierarchy, the competence hierarchy. I use this silly example, which is like, you don't have to teach Billy, who's 7 years old, on his bicycle, riding his bicycle down the street and popping wheelies and riding wheelies down the street to get Susie's attention as she's walking home from school. Nobody taught him to do that. He just does. Hey, there's Susie, because that's what we do. That's our evolved mental firmware. That's how we start. And so you take that and you just, men, maybe we overcomplicate things a little bit more, but that's still the same impetus that, PUA or learn, or why did you become a psychologist, right? Oh, clearly you have a degree in philosophy and physics. Why are you a psychologist? Why not do something in physics? Why not do something in philosophy? Now, maybe you are. Maybe that's where this goes. Guys, again, the rule for if I see something in the chat that looks like it is close, then I will. If it's on topic, I will put it out there. If not, then I won't until the end. We'll talk about things later. Okay, let's keep going.
Of course, unfortunately, the logical extension of this alleged power asymmetry and power grab is to avoid all committed relationships. Enter MGTOW, men going their own way. The thinking is this: casual sex is fine. Committed relationships, including and especially marriage, play to the benefit of women. Women use the law, use, legislation, use institutions to extract and extort men, to extract benefits and extort men. So when they get married with a man, they then abscond with half his property and migrate towards a higher level man.
Getting really sick of this muting thing. So again, this is the same rationale that is used. Thanks, brother, for that 700 rupees. Rubies. Red pill used to make me angry because Rollo's words always right. But at some point, I needed to embrace it. Yes. This is a common, and MGTOWs, you'll be happy to know I'm going to defend you on this one. MGTOWs see the code in the matrix. They understand they understand the diagnosis. I've said this before. MGTOWs get the diagnosis right. The only part I don't agree with is the prescription, right? The medicine. And there's a lot of reasons I disagree with that. But here I'm going to defend you though, is that the first thing that these guys, the guys who are critics, like sort of the outside of MGTOW will say is that it is it's all about sex, right? No, it's not all about sex. It's as a matter of fact, depends on, like, MGTOW is so broad that for some guys, for one end of the spectrum, it certainly is. Other guys would be happy to have sex. They'll be happy to get into a situation if the woman if it's on his terms. Remember, MGTOW is about not making women the metric of your self-worth, your self-esteem, who you are. I keep saying, and again, here's another thing that I've said in the past, which is a woman should only ever be a complement to a man's life, never the focus of it. Does that sound like something that would align with MGTOW? Well, guess where? When I said that back in 2007. So when I listen to guys make these rational, the other thing that he's talking about is something that tradcons really talk about as well, which is sort of he'll get into respectability here in just a second, but actually let me just keep going. I think this is,
we'll come to it in a few minutes. Yeah. Now, all these MGTOWs, the red pillars, the black pillars, and any other pillars of society, all of them breed on the grounds, and they are a groundswell which reflects really unprecedented social trends. Human society had first come to being in an organized sense with the agricultural revolution about 10,000 years ago. Jericho, ostensibly, was the first urban center in today's Palestine. And that was 10,000 years ago. So for millennia, for thousands of years, we have been organizing society around specific gender roles.
Right, let me just halt him in his history lesson here real quickly. He presumes, and this is you'll see where his feminist training or his gynocentric training comes out here in just a minute. He's starting from I think he believes that society and Western, the culture we live in today was only started after or post-agriculture. And I've talked about this too. It was even prior to agriculture, you can see we have genetic records right now of men and women that show, and I can give you the stats for this. I can show you the studies for this. Genetically, show that even after agriculture, 17 women reproduced for every one man. And I can show you, this is 8,000 years ago. So we're talking pre to post agriculture society. Now, monogamy, I think this is just me. This is Rollo Tomassi spitballing here. I think that after agriculture, monogamy worked. It was the best thing for men and women, because it in some way was at least a loose societal guarantee that even guys who were sort of the beta males, the guys who were the less desirables, let's say, could at least have some kind of assurances of passing on their genetic legacy, because it was only one man, one woman. And that's when you got things like the soulmate myth, and you start to see these things sort of crop up in our popular romantic fantasies, like our archetypes, right? When we talk about the soulmate or the romantic ideal, like courtly love, all of that is post-agriculture. And really what that mythology is meant to reinforce in society is a monogamous one man, one woman, have a little kid or have a few babies, maybe a lot of babies, and repopulate the earth, right? Be fruitful and multiply. One man, one woman. Whereas prior to agriculture, it was much more polygamous, meaning one alpha male had lots of, women that he could breed with. In some cultures, that's still the way it is now. I realize this in Islam, you have the option. You don't have to, but you have the option of having up to 4 wives. You don't have to do that, but you can. And that is sort of a vestige, let's just say, of how things used to be when the religion was being formed, when it was first, coming to be codified, let's just say. Same thing happened to the Hebrews and the Jews of old, right? I mean, Abraham had Sarah and I forget the other girl's name, and concubines, and created the tribes of Israel because of polygamy, not because of monogamy. So when we start talking about things from a post as versus a pre agricultural societies, the other thing is we're coming out of that right now. So to make these comparisons, if it's a history lesson, great. If it's to make comparisons to that and how that is correct, then here you'll see what he's going to say here.
Men born with one set of genitalia had their assigned roles in society, and men similarly born with another set of genitalia and a different hormonal structure and more musculature had their roles in society. In many societies, the roles were not considered superior or inferior.
No, they were. Sorry, Sam. Here's where we part ways. What did you notice this? Did you pick? I didn't. Okay, class. Hello, children. Children, did you pick up on this? He just I guess parroted back, like regurgitated blank slate equalism. How did he do that? By presuming that men and women are just exactly the same with different genitalia. I would expect that from a women's studies class or someone who's a philosophy class trying to impute to me or to teach the class that men and women, the only reason why we have gender roles is because society and social structures, social constructionism, created those roles. This is 100% categorically, provably false. Because patriarchy, which he's about to get into right here, is a logical extension of natural, biological designation, sexual differences that were, because of those differences, made us the apex species on this planet. So to say that it's all social constructionism and we're all equal and one set of humans has this genitalia and one set of humans has, it's not just genitalia. It's not just larger body types, it's like, well, he was saying, more musculature and stuff like that is a little bit different, but we're basically the same. No, we are different, and we are a lot more different than this mindset likes to accept, is comfortable in accepting. And this is what in book 4, I talk about this in very minute detail. This is old order thinking. The old order thinking is that we're all the same, that there are no differences, or that if there are differences, they are so minuscule that we shouldn't build a society based on them. Well, guess what? The reason we even got to a polygamous society and then to a monogamous society and then to a pre-agrarian to a post-agrarian society, so those social orders, the reason we got to those is because at some point back in our ancestral past on the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, when we were living in tribes, we had ways of doing things. We had ways of surviving. Women were the more vulnerable sex. Men were the protectors and the providers. We were the ones who would go out and kill the woolly mammoth and bring it, or the caribou, and bring it back, right? Women were the gatherers. They were gestating and incubating the next generation. Those things right there, that is evolutionary psychology 101, something I suggest that you really brush up on before you start mouthing off about this kind of stuff. Because we are not equal. We are not blank slates. We have evolved mental firmware that predisposes us to certain behaviors, to different mating strategies, which you're going to talk about here, but you're not going to make those, like, Sam, sorry, but you're not going to make this connection, at least not from the video I've seen. You won't make the connection between hypergamy and our evolved past, because you're still caught up in the idea of the blank slate. And I picked up on this immediately when I saw this. I'm like, this is the language of the blank slate. This is equalism and egalitarianism. He's presuming that back in the day everything was equal, but then society or men were bastards, and they suddenly arranged socially the society to favor them and to crush women's souls.
Women were not considered inferior to men; they were considered different to men. And because the belief was that women had different endowments, distinct endowments to men, they were relegated to and confined to a highly specific set of functions, which they could never exit. There was sort of a glass ceiling, if you wish. Men, similarly, were confined and imprisoned and incarcerated within a role space, a space of functions. And so men, for example, had to do everything which concerned muscles and strength and brawn. Women had to do everything which had to do with the family, or raising children, child rearing. And so these roles ossified over time, coalesced and ossified and fossilized. And by the 19th century, during the Victorian era, gender roles were codified, literally codified.
Actually, they were codified well before, long before the Victorian era. Okay, they were codified at least back in like medieval times, right? I mean, back in the, let's see, the late 1400s. When we talk about courtly love, and I've talked about chivalry in the past. When I talk about chivalry and courtly love, you can see the codification that he's talking about back then. Like, women are supposed to do this, men are supposed to do that. When you look at the noble women who codified courtly love, wrote the romantic ideal, inserting really feminism, but really women's interests into the chivalric code, that's enforcing that. It happened a long time before industrialization. So to say that this was sort of like an 1800, like a Victorian era thing, is okay. Yeah, it was, but it came a lot longer before that than then. But this is he's about to, and I'll just let it run here for a minute, but he's about to give us the standard feminist boilerplate of women were property, or women were they're beasts. We're beasts of burden. We just kept you out in the field. Women, we just kept you out in the field, and we just banged you and used you, and then you had babies for us, and we just took them away, and then we just kept you in fattening stalls, and that, like your Hebrews of old, like in old Egypt, like, let my people go.
Up until that time, women were considered chattel, property of men, similar to beds or, pieces of furniture. And in the Victorian era, they were, on the one hand, liberated in some sense, especially the economic sense, but on condition that they adhere to and accept highly specific gender roles from which they could not deviate. And if they did deviate, they were imprisoned. For example, there was a movement called the suffragettes, and they tried to open up society, to level the playing field, and many of them were imprisoned. They were
All right. Well, since we are now 100 years past the ratification of the 19th Amendment, let me give you a bit of information here, Mr. Vaknin. Back in 1849, there was this little conference called the Seneca Falls Convention, or something like that. And that's where the suffragettes started. So that would be right around the middle of the Victorian era, don't you think? Second of all, the suffragettes were basically terrorists of the time. And if you'd like me to show you the links and the news clippings between the late 1800s into the mid 1900s, like right, it was 1920 was when women got the right to vote, but it didn't stop after that. But I can show you clippings of women bombing churches, plotting assassinations. Yes, they went to jail. They went to jail for bombing churches. That's why, because they wanted to get their point across. They were terrorists. We would call them the same thing today. There are no waves of feminism. People get surprised when I say that. There are no waves of feminism. Feminism has been the same movement since 1849 that it is in 2020. It was just interrupted by wars and civil unrest and World War I, World War II, uprisings here, all right up until the sexual revolution. If you want to know when really women's, like the ERA or the women's rights, the suffragette kind of, when that ended? It ended at 1965 when we had when we surrendered by creating hormonal birth control. That's when really all of things really kind of changed. If you want a marker in history, that's the marker you really need to look at, because that's where you'll see all these stats go, or they'll go, down. And there's one thing that happened during that time, and it was hormonal birth control. And we gave it unilaterally to women. But to say that women were imprisoned as a result of that, yeah, they were imprisoned because not because they were like these radical women or anything. It's because they were criminals. Mostly they were criminals. And I can show you the news clippings, and not just here in the United States, in the UK as well, and in Western Europe. And of course, what happens is during like World War I, World War II, they kind of like back up off of it a little bit. And really, yeah, they went to jail, sure, but not for the reasons that you think they did. Not because they were treated as, political eggs or prisoners. He's going to get into this too, and I figured I will give this to you as well. He's about to talk about women's property rights and things like that. And what he's really referring to is this concept called coverture. Okay. Coverture was a legal doctrine whereby, I'm reading this from Wikipedia, upon marriage, a woman's legal rights and obligations were subsumed by those of her husband. It's important to remember this. Pay attention, class. In accordance with the wife's legal status of what's called femme covert. Okay. An unmarried, and that's French, right? An unmarried woman is a femme solo, had the right to own property and make contracts in her own name. Does that sound like women were enslaved back then? I mean, yeah, they certainly didn't have the same economic advantages, but when it came to property rights, coverture, as long as a woman stayed single, she had rights. She could own property. She was on her own. She was a strong, independent woman, right? Coverture arises from the legal fiction, and that's a legal definition, that a husband and a wife are one person. That's where this comes from. Not from men like crushing women's souls, treating them as chattel. Chattel is a term that Gloria Steinem used back in the 70s. We're still and this guy even now are still using it today in 2020. Chattel, prisoners, slaves. Like I said, the Hebrews of old, let my women go. Like that's the impression that we're supposed to have, that for women from the time of agriculture, that they were just these slaves. Like they were just marched around in chains naked, and all they did was stay barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen and making food or making babies. That's the only thing that women would ever do. And that's simply not true. And particularly not in the era that he's referring to right now, which is a Victorian era, because this is coverture is from that era. So coverture arises from the legal fiction that men and women are one person. Now, this is a legal thing, not necessarily there's certainly a social thing too, but coverture was established in common law it's English common law for several centuries throughout most of the 19th century, meaning the 1800s, influencing some other common law jurisdictions. According to Ariane Shernock, I don't know who that is, coverture did not apply in Scotland, and Wales is unclear. Okay, well, those are the regional things. After the rise of women's rights, the women's rights movement in the mid-19th century, what did I say? 1849, Seneca Falls, coverture came under increasing criticism as oppressive towards women, hindering them from exercising ordinary property rights and entering professions. Coverture was substantially modified by the late 19th century. Sound like they're still in chains and marched around and everything else? No. So in the 19th century, married women's this is great. Coverture was first substantially modified by the late 19th century Married Women's Property Acts, passed in various common law legal jurisdictions and was weakened and eventually eliminated by subsequent reforms. And that those reforms came in the 1960s. What else came in the 1960s? That's right, hormonal birth control. Certain aspects of coverture, mainly concerned with preventing a wife from unilaterally incurring major financial obligations for which her husband would be liable, survived as late as the 1960s, and in some states, of the United States. So that's you can read the rest of that. It's just look up coverture. It's COVERTURE. That's coverture. Now, clearly, he doesn't have the Mr. Dr. Vaknin, what this guy doesn't have that knowledge, or is ignoring those things, or is presuming that certain things are the way that they are as a result of what he's been taught in school, or what he believes ought to be true in a female correct society. So we have that. Yeah, I'll elaborate. I'll give you a little bit more on some of that in the background. I've done stuff on feminism. I don't like to get too deep into feminism because I think that it is like as a movement, it's based on female supremacism. In fact, again, in the marriage part of my fourth book, I talk about coverture. That's why I thought this was interesting, because what we're seeing right now, and he's about to explain this to you, is we've flipped coverture to affect only men now, not women. So as of like say 1965, 1967, somewhere around there, right when we had the sexual revolution, that was the beginning of flipping coverture to benefit women in the same way that it used to benefit men. So really what we're doing right now, and I said this the other day, is that when we're talking about responsibility versus authority, patriarchy is a balanced system. Patriarchy used to mean that men had responsibility and authority. So we're responsible for our children. We should be anyways, legally. In fact, we're still legally responsible for our children today. That if we create a child, even if once the sperm leaves our body and we give women the right to choose whether she wants to abort it or do whatever the hell she wants to, women are essentially in control of the human reproductive process. But men are responsible for women's decisions. For that process, men have to fund it. That is actually the flip of what coverture was. So for men, for women, on the other hand, like remember coverture, I just read this a second ago, is that it was originally intended so that if a woman made financial decisions, remember, because men and women are supposed to be one unit, right? If women were single, they had more control. They could own property when they were single. They could start a business. They could have wealth. Maybe not as much opportunities to get that wealth, but they could have it if they were femme soleil. But if they are femme covert, which means they're with a guy, then the man takes over that woman's property, that woman's business, that woman's stuff, because now they are seen as him being the primary and him being the headship, right? And maybe you can make a case for social constructionism here religiously as well. But primarily, coverture laws were so that man or that woman could not make financial decisions that would affect them both deleteriously, right? Or maybe even as an advantage. It was the man who was making those decisions because it was the man who had responsibility and authority under a patriarchal system. Because patriarchy is balanced. Gynocentrism is based on female supremacism. And this is what he's never going to get. I can talk to him blue in the face and it's not going to I'm not going to change his mind. But patriarchy used to be how we kept checks and balances. Once we hit 1965, those checks and balances flew right out the window.
Patrons, they were respectable ladies, but they were put in prison. So the Victorian era was a Faustian deal. The women sold their freedom in certain arenas of life, for example, politics, in return for the protection of society. So society protected their property, society protected their access to their husband's property, society protected their child rearing functions, and society codified men's role in ascertaining and securing sufficient means to raise children. And on the other hand, women gave up access to certain types of education, most professions, and politics. This was the Victorian Faustian deal. which was undermined mainly in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s by feminism and the feminists. There is no question that traditional gender roles are dead and that sex has become merely a physical function, no longer associated with intimacy. Both men and women feel disoriented and overlooked in this maelstrom of gender vertigo. The pill, contraception, widespread or widely available abortion, they all liberated women. They restored women's ownership and control of their own bodies.
Okay, so here's where he's going to unironically contradict himself. So we just talked about a minute ago how these old school rules, right? These old school, we're going to put men in charge. Patriarchy is in effect, and men have responsibility, but they also, with that responsibility, they have commensurate authority. So if I'm going to be responsible over my child, if I'm going to be responsible for my wife, if I'm going to be responsible for my household, if I'm going to be the head of the household, if there are going to be certain checks and balances, there has to be a certain authority I have over the women in my household, the men in my, the boys in my household as well, right? I have to be the patriarch of the family. So it's not just about I think what happens is like guys like this and women also, they tend to think that it's tyranny. That, I don't have any control, so therefore it must be tyranny. No, look where we are right now. He just said this a second ago. Well, now we have casual sex, and now everything's meaningless. Or now we have now we have abortion. It's interesting to me that he doesn't see the connection here. It's like, well, now women have more choice, and now they can do the things that they want to. 1930s feminism, actually, it's not 1930s feminism. It was actually about 1960s feminism that was sort of heated, let's just say, because in the 1930s, in the Depression, feminism was on hold. That's one of those social things that happened that put feminism sort of on simmer for a little while. And then we had World War II, and we know what happened then. There wasn't much feminism going on then. And in the 50s, when we were living high on the hog and things were going great, and especially in the United States and in most other Western countries, except for maybe Germany and maybe France, who were rebuilding, things were good here. Nobody cared about feminism at that time. I mean, maybe to a minor degree, but feminism didn't come into its own until we had this one amazing little invention called hormonal birth control. And you want to know why we have abortion and why we have child support, why we've shifted from a marriage-based model of raising children to a child support-based model of raising children? Because we flipped those coverture laws, right? We flipped that, the dynamic anyways. Now, we didn't do it immediately. It's happened now, but it didn't then. So he's amazed at all this, wow, what's happened since then, right? It's because of what you're talking about. It's because of that invention. So the patriarchy that we had, the beneficent patriarchy that we had prior to all this, what were things like before that? And what were things like once we smashed the patriarchy, right? Once the pill smashed the patriarchy. Are things better for us sexually? Are things better for us reproductively? Are things better for us with the fertility rate? Women have choices and they can now get educations and they can now get into, great. Are things better as a result of that? Let's see. Let's find out, class.
From that moment on, women were the choice makers. They were the decision makers as to the structure of the family, the size of the family, or whether to have a family at all. It is also true that women are empowered and, having been only recently emancipated, are imitating the traits and behaviors of men, but not of men generally, of antisocial men. It is veritably a post-apocalyptic age for relationships and dating. We know that children who are abused in families tend to become abusers later in life. They tend to emulate an antisocial and psychopathic role. They tend to internalize or introject the abuser.
So let's look at some more statistics here, Doctor. When we look at abusers, when we look at, antisocial men, We can find these stats anyway. I'm just going to refer you to one great book. It's called The Boy Crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell. In that book, you can see the stats of how great the products of single mothers have been. These empowered women, right? They're getting college degrees. They're making their own decisions. They have the right to an abortion. They have the right to divorce. They have a no-fault divorce. They have the right to child support. They have the right to all these old order responsibilities for men, but none of the new order authority that men should probably have as a result of that responsibility that they used to have under the old social order or the old social contract, which was patriarchy. So when we look at all these abusers and we look at all these antisocial social guys that you think that women are modeling themselves after, how did we produce those guys? Do we produce them with patriarchy, with those horrible men who owned women as chattel, or did we produce those guys as a result of shifting from a marriage-based model of raising children to a single mother, child support-based model of raising children? Can we look at the stats for drug abuse, for incarceration rates, for let's just say antisocial men? I'm just going to go out for sake of time here. Antisocial men are more or less, like largely, let's say, produced by single mothers today. And those single mothers are single because we empowered them, right? Because of all that great stuff, that emancipation stuff that happened back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Minorities, such as women, people who have been abused, tortured, traded over millennia.
Are women minorities? Really? I mean, they account for 50, well, let's just say round number, 50% of the population. I don't think women are minorities. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say that's simply false. Now, he's going to make ethnic comparisons here because that's where we go with this, right? We have to say, well, you just heard here a second ago is, they were basically paraded around in chains and forced to work on, they're basically reproductive slaves, right? All men wanted them for was to bang them and then have babies with them, and that was it. And he's about to say 100,000 years or 10,000 years, I think, something like that. But listen to the dialogue and tell me if this dialogue isn't something that you might hear from like a women's studies class.
Women have been enslaved for 10,000 years. Women have been treated as property. Women have been tortured, mutilated, sold. Women really have a record which far outweighs anything done to Black people in the United States. I mean, slavery in the United States pales in comparison to what women had to go through literally in all patriarchal societies and cultures around the world. So now that they have been emancipated and liberated, it is not surprising to psychologists, at least, it's not surprising to social psychologists, that women are adopting the role of their abusers. Women now want to be the abusers. They are the abused children who later become abusers. They become narcissistic. They become psychopathic because all abused people, all victims of abuse, adopt narcissistic and psychopathic traits. Actually.
So for 10,000 years, women have had lives worse than black slaves on plantations from the 1600s to civil rights movement, I guess. I don't know. That's basically what he's saying. That's the equation right there. That's the comparison. Really. That's it. So that's where we're going with this. So what he's going to talk about here in just a second is that women, because of that history, that every woman has PTSD right now. Every woman, like, I don't know how magically they get it, but because of this extensive 10,000 years of walking around in chains as chattel and nothing better, like with neck collars and walking, now we're women, what are we going to do? Those women, all those women, Because of that, because your great grandmother back in Cleopatra's time and whenever, because she was treated as a chattel, that this is why this is the big get even, right? For this generation, because remember, we're only talking really about at least maybe the past 4 generations of women, because like, what is it? The greatest generations pretty much died out, or they're almost died out. So the past, let's say 5 generations, we got the boomers, and I'm just spitballing here because I know there's other ones in between, but I'm going to say boomers, Gen X, which is what I'm part of. Then you have, I guess Gen Y is kind of a thing, but I don't know if that really counts. We don't really talk about them all that much, but Gen Y maybe is the millennial generation. So you got millennials, and then you got post millennials, which is the Z-lennials right now. So you got 4 like main generations. I know that there's other ones that they classify in there, and technically the Z-lennials would be the Z's, or somewhere between the two. But like Generation Z right now is like my daughter's generation, right? 22 years old. So, and then millennials are in their mid to late 30s. Gen Z or Gen X is from 65 to somewhere in the 80s. I can't remember, maybe the 80. So like we're like Gen X is now like late 40s, early 50s. And so, and the boomers, of course, okay, boomer, they're in their 60s and their 70s right now. And maybe there's some that are after that, I don't know, but those are 4 generations. So within 4 generations, we still have PTSD from women's slavery as far back as, pre-agrarian times, right? That's the logic we're supposed to be following here. So they're all emancipated, but they all have PTSD. And the reason why women want to be like men is because they are all suffering from projection or wanting to become like their oppressors in a large scale. Rather than a personal scale, they're on a large scale. So this is like social psychology, I guess. I don't know where this goes, but let's just keep going.
Today, the bleeding edge research shows that it is impossible to distinguish the victim of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's impossible to distinguish the victim of domestic violence, spousal abuse, family abuse, narcissistic abuse. It's impossible to distinguish the victim of all these types of abuse from people with personality disorders. For example, victims of CPTSD, victims of complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
So all women have some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. all women are damaged goods. So, well, maybe that follows, right? Maybe that follows some of the logic that I hear coming from
disorder, behave exactly
coming from MGTOWs.
like people with borderline personality disorders. They have mood lability. They
all have BPD.
Emotionally dysregulated. They are very frequently psychopathic. They have no impulse control. They are defiant. They have splitting defenses. They see everything as good or bad, black and white, dichotomous thinking. So it's no wonder, it's not surprising that women, having been liberated after 10,000 years of slavery, have become effectively psychopaths. Absolute psychopaths. This was to have been expected. The solution is not avoidance or manipulation. We need a.
So, ladies, if I have any women watching this, or you're in the comments later on, you are, for the last we have 4 generations of psychopaths that are out there. So now we've gone from like, they've been empowered to every woman is a psychopath, or BPD, let's just say, which is pretty close to the mark anyway.
New social contract between the bearers of disparate genitalia. And we need to think with our heads rather than with our nether organs. The thing is that, as I said, more and more financially emancipated women mimic psychopathic men. They adopt both psychopathic misbehaviors and psychopathic traits. And there's a curious gender inversion seems to be occurring. Men are assuming hitherto feminine roles and reactive patterns, even as women are becoming more and more manly so to speak. They assume masculine gender roles. For example, judging by numerous reports from the crowded clinics of couple therapies, men are now more sex averse, frigid.
Because couples therapies is where we need to get our info.
Men tend to consume porn and masturbate much more than seek a woman to have sex with. They compensate with pornography. This used to be what women did in the 1950s and 60s. There was no concept of a frigid man. Women were frigid. Now the majority are actually men. I am not talking only about primary breadwinners. 43% of all households in the primary breadwinner, the person who brings money home exclusively, is a woman now. 40% of all children are raised.
He's gonna quote some stats here in just a second. Yes, and again, why? Why is this? Why is that the emancipation that this guy in every, like, in one breath, it's like women are empowered and isn't this a good thing? And now it's men are bad. And what he's really going to come, and like I said, I'm not going to go through this whole damn thing, but in a minute here, he's going to make the same tradcon, and I don't know that he's a tradcon, but he's going to make the same tradcon point of men need to accept more responsibility, right? He's saying, oh, it's men that are frigid. No, men still want to get laid. It's men have found better ways around it. And he's about to also make, in his own words, clever words, talk about how the juice isn't worth the squeeze, which is funny considering he was criticizing MGTOW just prior to this, which is pretty much their mantra, right? That's the anthem for MGTOWs, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. But yet he doesn't make the connection. He's not making the connection between the reason why 42% of children are born out of wedlock right now. He'll say that that's because of men, a horrible it'll be fatherlessness, right? They never say single motherhood. They always say fatherless homes. That is a deliberate distinction that is made by the media, particularly by gynocentric media. You will hear even well-meaning people, even in the Manosphere, even red pill guys who will talk about fatherless homes. No, they are homes led by single mothers, not by fatherless homes. Men have been systematically removed from the home since really the late 60s, early 70s, since the Duluth model of feminism, for sure. So I mean, yeah, are there deadbeat dads? Sure there are. In fact, you don't hear about deadbeat moms. You only hear about deadbeat dads. You only hear about that. You only hear about that negativity with guys because men are still expected to have masculine patriarchal responsibilities for those children. You want a real, truly equal society where we all have just different gender or different genitalia. You want a real equal society? Remove men's financial responsibilities for children, even if they're their own. Say, do you want to have this kid? Do you want to take care of this kid? And if I'm like, and what guy's going to say no? But like, maybe there's guys that say, no, I don't want to have anything to do responsibility for that kid because first of all, I don't think it's mine. And second of all, even if it is mine, I need to opt out because this is not what I want. Women can do that. They simply flush the kid. They can do that anytime they want. And we call that empowerment. So how is it that if we're both just equals and we both have just different genitalia, how come she has more power than I do when it comes to human reproduction or DNA tests? Why is it that there's not a legal mandate for women to get a DNA test of the child to make sure that the person she's saying is the biological father, to keep on the hook for the, like I was saying on last Wednesday's show about Jay Cook? Why is there not DNA? Why is DNA not required, a DNA test required at every live birth? I'll tell you why. Because all that great shit you were talking about with female empowerment and all that emancipation shit. Yeah, that's why. That's why we're where we're at right now. You know why guys are jerking off to porn? Because they're powerless. Because coverture, man, it's been flipped. It is better. Remember what I said in coverture? Like if a femme soleil can own property. She has all these rights that she could never have while she was married. She can do all these. She can start her own business. She can do these things. She can, have a fan, whatever. She has all these things that she can do. But as long as she doesn't get married. Does that sound a lot like what our situation is right now? Does that not sound exactly the like the argument that MGTOWs are making about marriage right now, does that not sound exactly the same thing? Because it is. That's exactly what I was saying. We've flipped coverture so that it affects men, not women. When you put women into that masculine role, okay, ladies, here it is. Here's society. Here's marriage. Here's reproduction. Here's work culture. Here's business. Here's all these great things you've been bitching and crying and moaning about for so long because you've been in chains since Egypt. Like here it is. Here you go. What do they do with it? Where are we now? Are things better because we crushed the patriarchy?
Raised by single women. So there's an inversion of roles there as well. Women are becoming the providers. Majority of college graduates are women. Majority of judges, majority of teachers, majority of doctors are women. These are high-paying professions.
Right. They're also very authoritative too, those positions.
Empathic world, based on empathy, founded on empathy. And so, of course, they have an advantage in future. But I'm talking about far more fundamental, primitive, animalistic things. I'm talking about the sex drive, people's sex drive. Men are becoming more like women used to be in the 1950s, and women are becoming more like men used to be throughout the ages.
Now, I didn't grow up in the 1950s, and maybe like Grease is the word or whatever. Like maybe Fonzie had something going, but I don't think there was that many guys like going out there and running game on girls and like banging girls left and right. I don't think they were quite as promiscuous as women are today in the 1950s. I don't think that the men of the 1950s were to any degree as promiscuous as women are in 2010 to 2020. Fonzie, maybe he did. If you're a greaser, maybe you got it. Elvis, definitely. Okay. But most guys in the 50s were not, dude, they weren't even on the same planet. Okay.
Promiscuous, adulterous, psychopathic, disempathic, users, predators. Men today are more romantic. They are more likely to be infatuated.
Those are all adjectives you will hear from feminists.
Men are more likely to suggest to transition to a committed relationship after a bout of casual sex. In other words, after a one-night stand, the man is more likely to ask to see the woman again.
Okay, this is how out of touch this dude is. Okay. To say that the man is after a one-night stand, okay? First off, the guys, the men who are having one-night stands, those dudes, they look like this. That the hot guy in the foam cannon party, that's the guy that's having one-night stands. And after a one-night stand, that dude, the guy on the, I guess it could be either one, but maybe they're gay, who knows? That dude is not saying, you know what, we really need to settle down and have kids. Come on. You know, it's funny to me because he was just talking about, you know, PUAs and scripts and all this other stuff. And it's like, okay, well, what's the deal? Because the only guys right now in 2020, and I can prove this with the GSS study, the only guys getting laid in 2020 are guys in the hot guy in the foam cannon party. Because as you just said here, Dr. Vaknin, guys who can get that, they're not looking to settle down. Like guys who are betas who finally got to have sex with the girl after the fourth or fifth date, the guy who is boyfriend material rather than like the guy that she breaks rules for, right? Because women break rules for alphas and they make rules for betas. And that guy, the 80% guy, the 85% guy, the guy who's not getting laid, 18 to 24-year-old, well, 18 to 29-year-old demographic, that guy, he might be the one suggesting that. But that didn't come after a one-night stand. That didn't come after casual sex. That came after probably like weeks to maybe even months of trying to figure this girl out. And that's, you know, waiting and hoping and jumping through the hoops and following all the rules that she's making for that one guy. The guys who are having casual sex are not the guys who are suggesting, hey, we really need to make this official. Those guys aren't doing that. Come on now. I don't know. Maybe it's been a while since he's been in the clubs where he's like hung out with guys who are like actually running real game. But apparently he's an expert on it because he was just saying a little while ago that PUAs were learning how to fiendishly bypass women's hypergamous filters. So the guys who are having one night stands are not suggesting let's get after it. It's the guys who don't have options. It's the guys who are necessitous, the guys who have a scarcity mentality. It's the beta males who, because of what I've called, what I don't call, it's actually researchers have called strategic pluralism theory. Go look that one up, Dr. Vaknin. Strategic pluralism theory. I think Marty Hazelton talked about it, and what's the other guy that was talking about it? One of her partners. Was it? I don't know. Go look up strategic pluralism theory, because what that states is that because more men are less attractive, more men are low SMV, they have to modify their sexual strategy. So they're not bastards. They're not evil. They're not guys in the 50s who are like, fiendish, like sociopaths with dark triad traits. These guys know that they're never going to get any if they don't modify their natural instinctive mating strategy. The instinctive mating strategy is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, which of course, coincides with pornography right now. And there are very few men that can actually follow that. Celebrities, maybe 20%, maybe 10%, 10 to 20% of men can actually follow that. The remaining 80 to 85% of guys, they have to follow strategic pluralism theory. And strategic pluralism theory is that men of low SMV have to invest all of their reproductive efforts in one woman. And they're willing to follow any rule. They're willing to that you want to know why these guys are romantic? That's why. Strategic pluralism theory.
Most women overwhelmingly decline such overtures for further contact after one-night stands. So it seems that men have become the weaker sex or the softer sex.
I want to know where those stats come from, because that is counter to everything I have read.
And already overtaken. Modern Western societies, at least civilized industrial societies, women, as I said, became primary breadwinners. And women are catching up to men in the frequency of cheating on their intimate partners and the number of one-night stands, of casual sex encounters, especially when these involve drinking or other forms of substance abuse. Women drink as much as men.
Mm-hmm.
They drink as much as men.
Can confirm.
They have casual sex as much as men. They cheat almost as much as men do. They have become men. These behaviors used to be the differential diagnosis, so to speak, between men and women. In the 1950s, women did not cheat, men cheated. Women did not drink, men drank. Women did not have casual sex almost. Men did. I mean, that's how you used to tell a man apart from a woman. And today, these.
All right, let me break that one down for you really quickly. Women were every bit as promiscuous, or they would have been, had there not been, let's say, social institutions or social stigmas that prevented them from doing those things. We had a better society as a result of that. We keep looking back at the 50s as some sort of like golden era. Like if you're from a patriarchal kind of tradcon mindset, you look back at the 50s as sort of, you want the time machine, right? You want to go back in time. But trust me, women were every bit as promiscuous, or would have been every bit as promiscuous as they are now if they if they didn't have the limitations and the buffers that you say were oppressive and kept them in chains and bondage just a little while ago. So what is it? Were they better off then, or are they better off now? Are we better off as a society then? And I'm talking global society, because pretty soon, I would say by 2030, maybe 2035, we will be a fully globalized, integrated society. We will have a one world religion. We'll have one world currency. We'll have one world, the territories you live in will just be the old school names, man. So where are we going with all this? What are we going to do? And are we going to live in a better way, or are we not going to live in a worse way? So when he's talking about this, the reason I stopped this real quickly is because, and I've written about this in my War Brides series, is if you go and you look at the rate of illegitimate births during World War II from 1939 through 1945, You look at and I've pulled these stats myself. If you go and you look at the illegitimate births, and I'm not talking about like, Vichy France, getting with German officers. I'm talking about even in the United States. Well, a GI is overseas getting shot at in Guadalcanal. His girlfriend is getting knocked up or his wife is getting knocked up by somebody else, right? There's stats for that. And women were just as promiscuous then as they are right now. And they come back, they get a Dear John letter or whatever that is. Did you ever see The Pacific, that series? Maybe it was HBO, I'm not sure, but this Pacific was it's a pretty brutal series. But if you look at that and you look at how like women were just like, they couldn't make any commitments to guys who were going overseas because they might die, right? And maybe, again, like I've said before, hypergamy is anything if it's not pragmatic. So yes, they were the greatest generation still had an abortion rate. And it was like, it was still illegal, but it didn't mean that if you didn't have enough money, you couldn't go get one. You could. And we have the stats to prove that. So it's not just like, oh, well, women were just these innocent little girls in the 1950s and men were these evil bastards who were just drinking all the time and just beating them when they got home. No, dude, they were promiscuous. That maybe not as much as they are now. But I don't think you're making your case here, honestly.
Distinctions are gone. Behaviorally, at least, men and women are indistinguishable. We have one gender. I call it a unigender world. We have one gender with two different types of genitalia.
Okay, you just said 1 second ago, 1 freaking second ago, that men wanted they're the romantics now. You're just saying that men have become women and women have become men. Sounds like they're a lot different, dude. Sounds like they're a lot different. But yet now we're going to default to blank slate equalism. We just have different genitalia. We're the same things. No, we're not, man. Your brain architecture. I can show you fMRI scans that completely disprove exactly what you're talking about right now. We can look at biochemistry. I'm not an endocrinologist, but I know damn well that men possess more testosterone naturally than women do. Although maybe that's changing because of, environmental changes and shifts. But yeah, I mean, you need to brush up on your evolutionary psychology and particularly evolutionary biology. Because we live in an age of information. We live in the new order, my friend. And all of this information is easily accessible. And I have accessed it for the last 20 years. So to say that we're all just different we're all just the same with just different plumbing. No, we are not, my friend. We have big biochemical, neurological differences between men and women. And those are a result of our evolved, our status right now as evolved human animals on planet Earth right now. And again, I'm not trying to be vulgar or challenge your beliefs. I'm just saying I will destroy blank slate equalism. At some point, I will destroy it entirely, utterly. I think Dr. Steven Pinker tried to, and then he kind of waffled on it, and he's kind of turned into who he is right now. But if you go read The Blank Slate, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. You go read Promiscuity by Tim Burkhead. You will change your mind very rapidly about women's promiscuity. So you just said a minute ago that women become men and men become women. Okay, well, are they different? No. They're all the same. What the fuck, man? What is it? Is it the same or are we different?
In many places, more women than men frequent singles bars and dives.
No one's going to single bars and dives.
3/4 of women admit to scouting for anonymous sex partners or for infidelity accomplices.
No, dude. They're all on OnlyFans. This, by the way, he recorded this video in April of 2020. So OnlyFans had just in March of 2020, OnlyFans increased like 60%. Yeah, they're on OnlyFans. They're on Tinder, man. They're not going to dive bars. But why would a woman like take a chance going to a dive bar or going to a single? What do the women in your world like still go to key parties? No, that's not how things are done right now, man. And again, it's like you're still so now are they the same or are they different? Because now you're saying that they're going to dive bars.
And women sue, of course, for 73% of all divorces. The floodgates are wide open.
Well, at least you got that one right.
Gender world, gender roles are fluid and often inverted. Gender vertigo ensues and ensued, and it was followed by male avoidance in a largely misogynistic manosphere I mentioned already. And again, all this is part and parcel of a bigger trend, the ascent of aloneness, atomization, alienation. What Emil Durkheim, the sociologist, 19th century sociologist, the father of sociology,
He does get this part
Durkheim
right.
called it anomy. He said that as the population explodes in numbers, societies will lose their coherence and cohesion, their meaning, norms, values, everything will be destroyed. He predicted a wave of suicide, and he predicted the rise of loneliness and aloneness, which
A wave of suicide, which of course men suffer from 5 times the instance than women do. But it's a good thing women are empowered, right?
Marx also predicted. He called it alienation. More and more people of both genders choose to live alone. Since 2016, in the West at least, the majority of people actually live alone. They find their own exclusive company irresistible. Technology rendered us utterly self-sufficient.
All right, he got that part right. But it's not because they prefer to be, it's because they have to be. I think what he's thinking is like people have become these self-centered like sons of bitches, right? Like you're just egos, you're just so self-absorbed that you want to live alone. And maybe that's true in some sense, but I think probably by and large, it's not because of society. It's because it's not because of like some sort of innate thing. I think it's more because those are the options that they're presented with right now, man.
So why be bothered with the quirks, moods, emotions, and expectations of other people? I mean, relationship is a full-time job, and it's a difficult job. It requires investment. It requires monitoring. It requires recreating the wheel time and again. It requires compromise. It requires skills that we have lost and that we do not wish to regain, because frankly, we don't need each other anymore. Procreation, marriage, and family are phased out.
Well, yes, I have said this before, that we are better together than we are apart. And we are atomizing our society, not just politically or ideologically. We're also atomizing it from a sexual perspective. I said this before, is that women have been convinced that they are these autonomous, self-fulfilling things with no need for anything outside of themselves. I said this during the Tommy Lahren section thing that I did, the episode I did. She believes that she doesn't need a man, but yet she creates a some odd minute video about how men are trash, and yet she's not a feminist, and how she'll never chase a man. But why would you create a video about that if that's the case? Why not just simply go, okay, screw it, I'm done. I don't need men. I'm just going to be my own thing. Again, like methinks she doth protest too much. Right? So you're making a video telling us all how you don't need men. Okay, well, wouldn't it be time better spent for you to just go do your own thing and focus on your being so badass? No, men and women need each other, but yet we have this. I'm going to go play on my side of the playground, and you're going to go play on your side of the playground. Never the twain shall meet unless we need to bang and have kids. And then we're all going to be self-contained, autonomous things with no need for anything outside of ourselves, no need for women, no need for family, no need for anything, no need for God, no need for anything except for ourselves. Everything that and you will hear women say this too. Like you'll hear women say, "You're enough." Have you heard that? I don't hear that from guys. I hear that from women telling other women that. Don't worry, girl. You need to know that you're enough. For what? Well, like we were talking about strong, independent women yesterday, and I was like, for what? What makes you independent? What makes you strong? Tell me the definitions of that. I'm still waiting for women to give me that definition. Like, give me something. Like, give me something to work with here. Nobody can tell me what that means because they're container words. They're just like whatever works for you, whatever fits your ego makes it. Oh, well, I make my own money. Okay, does that make you independent? Does that make you strong? What does that do? Like, tell me how that in any way makes you a different person. Because when you get to a certain point, when you could be 38 years old and you froze your eggs and you can't find Mr. Right, then suddenly things change. Like, you might be independent and strong and all full of yourself at 26, but at 36, at 46, you don't see the forest for the trees. Sometimes you need a God's eye view of the whole thing and look at what's going on. Women don't have that kind of insight because we're different. I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. It can be a bad thing, but it can be a good thing sometimes. It's good that human beings can forget things. It's a good thing that we have an ability to focus on important things and push other things to periphery, because we'd be driven insane if we couldn't do something like that. But while something is a blessing, another thing is a curse. And right now, because we've put women in power that he's so proud of, because now they're out of their chains and out of bondage, now where are we at? Well, we're in an atomized society. We're in I'll go to my side of the playground and you go to your side of the play. Yeah, why? Exactly, Doomer dude. I love that one. I'll just put that one up for you just for the hell of it. Wine and cats. That's where we're at. Wine and cats. That's where we're at.
Sex is gradually displaced by pornography and the occasional casual masturbation with someone else's body. When it comes to relationships, the prize is just not worth the price.
Sound like juice is not worth the
common
squeeze?
Wisdom when I was growing up was that as men get older, they have a greater number of potential partners, and this is known as age hypergamy. So a man age 60 can theoretically have a partner, a woman, as an intimate partner who's age 20. It's not that uncommon, but
it's not all that uncommon, really. So a 60-year-old dude gets like it's. Hold on a second. I'm going to leave. I'll be right back. No, I didn't see any 60-year-old guys on my street with 20-year-old girls. Maybe I need to go downtown. I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. We'll see how that one works out. But by my knowledge, and I've worked in the liquor industry for a long time, I don't see too much of that. Although we like to perpetuate the idea that old men get with young chippies, right? That once a guy gets some success, he's gonna dump his wife and get with the girlfriend, right? Or get with the hot secretary he hired. That's still something. Just clearly, you learned that one in women's studies, right? Again, apex fallacy. So it's not something that's regular, but let's go on. Let's continue.
A woman age 60 usually cannot have an intimate partner age 20.
Yeah.
So
usually, unless it's 2018, 2019.
Women are compelled to choose older men. As women age, they have a shrinking pool of possible mates.
Did you hear that? Women are compelled. Not because, and I think if you would have asked him about this, they're compelled not because of biological and evolutionary differences. They're compelled by society. Again, this guy, I want to say this, right? And I probably should have said this way back at the beginning, because now we're coming up on 2.5 hours pretty soon here. But every argument that Dr. Vaknin, I hope I'm saying his name, Vaknin. Every argument he makes is based on social constructionism. Everything from women are in chains to we're just the same critters with just different plumbing between our legs. All of that, blank slate equalism, egalitarianism. Every last argument he has made in this he's got a 30-minute video here. Every argument he makes is premised on one thing: that social constructionism controls everything. It's not about biology. It's not about evolution. It's all about, and by the way, feminist ideology, gynocentrism, is firmly planted in social constructionism. So you want to know, and I don't think I've ever made this point before, but you want to know why people hate evolutionary psychology so much. Why God Saad gets so much grief. Why Marty Hazelton, Dr. Buss, Matt Ridley. I'm just rattling off names here, but why do they get so much grief? Why do people say, "Oh, that's just what is it? Rational, like backwards rationalization, right?" Or it's called Yeah, just so thinking. That's what it's called. That's thank you, Godsod, for that. Just so thinking, which means like you just sort of like you see something and then you just explain it by like like what's likely to be the evolutionary reason for that. And it's like, no, evolutionary theory has to, well, evolutionary psychology is one of the most critically scrutinized sciences that is out there because it makes incredible claims. So when you make incredible claims, you have to may have incredible research or have incredible, like say, or have at least credible, knowledge about what it is you're talking about. You get, I think one of the things that gets me is a lot of people will say, well, a lot of that doesn't replicate, right? Well, the fact that people keep saying that it doesn't replicate certainly means that it is one of the most scrutinized sciences that there is, right? So yeah, some of the stuff that it claims, and it's not just sexual. Remember, evolutionary psychology gets a bad rap. Usually when it finds something out that is unflattering of the feminine. It's not just about sex. Like evolutionary psychology is about like, Gad Saad has a book about how evolutionary psychology affects our purchasing habits. And we're all, oh yeah, tell me about that because it makes my hustle easier. Right? Tell me about reciprocation. Tell me about social proof. Tell me about pre-selection. Tell me about, yeah. Feed me more evolutionary psychology. Okay. And then there's this thing called hypergamy. What? No. That's just if so thinking or just so thinking. No, dude. You don't get to pick and pull. It's either scrutinize or it's not. What you want to hear is not what, I get off my high horse real quick, but when it comes to like things like mating, yes, older men. Well, first of all, women have a preference for men, and I can show you the stats. I don't even need like scientific stats. I can show you dataclysm and show you these stats. Women tend to prefer men or find men attractive, aroused by men, or want to get with guys who are anywhere between 3 to 7 years older than they are, average. And that and the mean average is really more like 5 to 7. But 3 to 7 years, a give or take, depending on the study that you're looking at. That's not because of society. That's not because okay, ladies, you're not supposed to do that. No, it's because men find youth and beauty and fertility attractive, and have since we were on the savannah in sub-Saharan Africa in our ancestral past, right? That's why we like what we like. We like big boobs. We like a nice ass. We like nice long legs. We need a hip to waist ratio in a certain proportions. Maybe some guys like a bigger butt than others. I don't know if that's on you, but but there are certain beauty standards that are universal across the world, across ethnicities, across cultures, across continents. We like symmetry. We tend to look for symmetry. We have human revulsion as a marker, let's just say, as an evolved part of our mental firmware. Those things matter. So it's women want a guy that's older, and men want a girl that's younger. It's not about empowerment. It's about simple biology, and it's about simple evolution. But because you believe in the blank slate, and because you believe in equalism, you have to find some way to rationalize it. And it seems like that's the right answer. Again, why do I hate on Carl Jung so much? Why do I hate on him? But why do I sort of downplay what relying on him as sort of this messiah of psychology? Well, he had a lot of information and he got a lot of things right, but what he got wrong is not enough for us to build a freaking society on. Well, blank slate. That was a good idea. The idea of the blank slate back in Enlightenment thinking was a fantastic idea because it sort of leveled the playing field between the aristocracy and the commoners, usually in revolutionary France back then. The Enlightenment thinkers, I believe that's where they originated from. And that helped us form the Constitution. That helped us become this country that we are. Okay, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with sort of this idea of a blank slate, but it's a idea whose time has come and gone. But to rebuild something is tougher than to accept that it needs to be rebuilt, right? To actually abandon old order thinking and start thinking in a new order way based on this new accurate information. So that's why I say, we shouldn't make Carl Jung or anyone else for that, or B.F. Skinner, Maslow, or whoever. We shouldn't make them a messiah. They contributed something significant. Okay, I'll say that. You want me to say something nice about Carl Jung? He contributed something significant to psychology that a first year Psych 101 student studies immediately and has the knowledge of. And so now guess what? We take that and we stand on the shoulder of that giant and we keep going. And we throw away what didn't work and what we've disproven, and we keep what does work. I'm just going to go a little bit more, and then I'm going to.
And this is age hypogamy. So men have age hypergamy, and women have age hypogamy. This evolutionary asymmetry had always had profound social implications.
Okay. I had to put that one out there. I'm going to end on this one. I probably could go on for a full nother episode on this one, but he's bought into the bullshit that Socrates has bought into, which is hypogamy. And hypogamy is some sort of like natural, innate thing. Now, what's funny to me is for the last half hour, 20 minutes here in his video, he's made the argument that it's all social conditioning. It's all social constructionism. And now we're going to go back to, now we're going to suddenly accept hypergamy. Now we're going to suddenly throw out hypogamy. No, these aren't, first of all, they're not social. And then again, there is no such thing as hypogamy because women don't want to select down. And certainly there's no hypogamy for women. There's hypergamy for women. And then also he's making okay, class, what is the common mistake, the greatest common mistake he is making and that most people make when they hate on hypergamy? Hypergamy is a straitjacket. That's right. We'll never get out of it. We're all doomed. It's all gloom and doom, right? And the other one that he's making is this. This is number two. The biggest misconception of hypergamy is that it's only based on one side. That hypergamy only affects beta bucks, only affects the provisioning side, only affects the side where we're looking for protection, where we're looking for provisioning, where we're looking for parental investment, the beta buck side of hypergamy. Hypergamy has two sides, Dr. Vaknin, alpha fucks and beta bucks. And no one, including yourself, including Dr. Jordan Peterson, including anybody who's ever uttered the word in the expanded definition of hypergamy, always focuses on one side, and it's always the beta buck side. You know why? Because that's the side that for more, I don't know what his notch count is, but usually the reason why guys focus on that is because that's the only thing they've ever known. If I do these things, if I measure up, if I provide, if I do the things that classical old order patriarchy that was so bad that put women in chains, if I do all those things, if I do all the things that he was saying were dancing monkey, right? Or doing triple monkey backflips or whatever the hell you want to call it these days. He was saying the same thing just earlier in this video a second ago. If I do all those things, then she'll want me because I'll be a good catch. I'll be the good father. It's cads versus dads. Well, he's saying there's no cads, there's just dads. But yet 2 seconds ago, he was saying, well, women want to get with guys. Women are more promiscuous. And it's not a social thing, dude. They've always been that way. They have always been hypergamous. They always will be hypergamous. The thing is that, and every woman, I don't care if she's a stripper on a pole or she's the girl that you met in Bible study, both those girls are hypergamous. And both those girls are looking for alpha seed and beta need. Not one or the other. Hypergamy isn't just about one or the other. Stop trying to separate those things. The reason you're trying to separate those things is because it locks in with blank slate equalism. Well, we're all the same. We're all looking for the same thing. No, we're not. In fact, you've said in this video 1,000 times that we're not looking for the same things, or you've at least pointed it out. Men are women, women are men. That doesn't sound like we're the same. It sounds like we're trying to swap gender roles because we've swapped authority. We've given authority to women and responsibility to men, rather than putting responsibility and authority in the hands of one person. Women don't want responsibility. They want authority. They want to be able to make decisions for themselves. but they don't want to. They want to be absolved of the consequences of those things. So I wanted to throw that out there. I'm going to stop here, guys. I'm sorry. I got to stop right here. Because we're getting short on time, and I'm already going to go over, and I know it. So I want to thank Dr. Vaknin here. Let me put him back up here. If you want to watch the whole thing, by the way, it's the link is, as you know, Vaknin. I'm sorry. God damn it. I've been mispronouncing the whole thing. My bad. Vaknin. It's I believe it's Russian. So I wanted to put that out here. You know, I will get to super chats here in just a second, because I always do that at the end, right? Boy, you guys have been very helpful. You know what? I also want to put this on here before I finish up as well. If you are interested, I am going to be making a sizable donation to GraySave very soon. This is my charity for retired greyhounds, rescued greyhounds. The reason I'm putting this out here, and I will put if you want the link, the link's very simple. It's just graysave.org /donate. Go, and if you want to make a contribution to me today, or if you were thinking about doing a super chat and you want to put a donation, take that donation and put it over there. In fact, I'm thinking I might take all of these donations, which I've recorded courtesy of Sam, and I will make a donation to GraySave in you guys' names. So everything that you have given me today, I will donate to GraySave. That is my Greyhound fund. And the reason why I'm putting this out there right now is, and you guys, if you guys have followed me this long, and there's at least 1,400 of you guys still there. The reason I am saying this right now, I have always been involved in Greyhound rescue. As you know, I have two. Ned's one of them, my most recent. So the reason I'm doing this is because in Florida, they just recently, I think in 2019, they outlawed, or they banned Greyhound racing in Florida. I am pro racing, just so you guys know. I think that it needs to be highly regulated, but I am still pro racing because it keeps the breed going, and I think that if it's done correctly and ethically, I think Greyhound racing is great. But what's happened is they've closed the tracks in Florida, and what has happened since COVID is they were supposed to cycle them out gradually, but because of COVID, they've had to close all the tracks immediately. They were just going to sort of gradually, progressively close all the tracks in Florida. And then just because they couldn't have this big influx of dogs into the system, into the adoption system. Well, now that COVID's here, they've closed all the tracks just like that. So now all these dogs have done exactly what they were trying to avoid, which is flood into these these systems. And so GraySave is the one that I work with here. They are in California, but they get dogs from all over the place, including Florida, which has really stressed them. And then, of course, COVID has also made it very difficult to sort of run things. So if you are so inclined, please go give them a donation. I would be appreciative of it. And let me know that you did. Okay, so that is it for today. I'm going to get to your super chats here. I'm sure, I'm just going to go do the super chats right now, because I'm sure you will probably get to what I want to close with. So let's keep going here. Giga Chad says, men are mad at the feminine imperative. Okay, I got to Giga Chad. Matuzi says, thanks, Rollo, for showing the importance of mental point of origin. Thank you. Scuba Steve says, these people who accuse you of being and spreading anger and hate are projecting their own shortcomings. I wish I could, I would say that, be careful using the term projection. I think people kind of toss that around too liberally. When we say, oh, you're just projecting. Well, okay, maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Maybe you're actually analyzing something, and people will say, I get accused of this all the time. You're just projecting your own biases into this. Okay, well, yeah, we all do that. It's impossible to be entirely 100% objective. I try to make a good effort at it, but I know that what is it? Observing a process changes the process. And I realize that. So be careful of that, because I think that when we say that, people accuse me of being hate or whatever, or the red pill of being hate, they're looking for an easy dismissal because they don't want to think about the ideas that we discuss. It's hard to have those conversations with people who have built their entire personalities and are what I call ego invested into their, oh, thanks for that, John, are ego invested into their into their belief set, into their ideology. And when you are in any way critical of women, or you say something that's unflattering to feminine nature, or what they believe is feminine nature, because it might not even be. But if you say something, you point things out and you do it in black and white, and you do it with the numbers and statistics and all this other stuff, it's hard. And so people will want to dismiss that. Oh, you're just a hateful, bitter man. All right, but the stats don't change. See you later. Mike says, Rollo, thanks for the $5. Do you follow any philosophies? Yes, enlightened self-interest. I feel like secular Buddhist and Taoist principles would help men along with Stoicism. You know, it's funny. I'll tell you something interesting, Mike, and then I'll move on here. I don't necessarily follow any like Stoicism as a philosophy or whatever. It's like, I think what you're saying is, do I practice any of those, like a religion or something like that? Like I've said before, I do have a religion. I do have a faith. As far as philosophies are concerned, it's interesting to me that like I have studied Taoism. I know what Buddhism is about. I have read not the whole thing of the Quran, but I've read the Quran. I've read the Bible. Especially after book 4, I'm as well versed in like religious studies as I've ever been in my life, and philosophy as well. I think what's interesting is I've read, and I did this, and I didn't really make this connection until later on, but I read the Havamal, which is sort of Norwegian, like Norse. Technically, it's supposed to be written by Odin, right? It's Norse philosophy, which is very kind of stoic. I think it's very manly, right? It's certainly very masculine, very patriarchal, very reflective, I think, of a lot of polytheistic religions. But a lot of the stuff that I was reading in there has like some crazy parallels to Taoism, like the same messages. Like the Tao Te Ching, right? Or even the Bhagavad Gita. You'll find a lot of the same messages. And it's interesting to me that those same ideals that men came up with are kind of common across, you can go to Norway, you can go to India, you can go to China, you can go to even in Africa, right? I mean, even in Native Americans, a lot of the same things sort of transfer over. So it's interesting to me. I guess if I have any kind of philosophy, I've always followed enlightened self-interest. So that has been my, that has been my my philosophy for a long time. Troy Rides Channel. Yeah, there's your plug, dude. Hi, Rollo, and everyone. I have just started learning to play guitar. Good for you. I bought an electric guitar and have also purchased lessons. So far, it's very fun. Good for you. Okay, I'll try to be short with this one. One of the things I like about art, and particularly when it comes to music today, is that just what, and this kind of like dovetails into what Dr. Vaknin was talking about, is we're very distracted today. I know I am. I have a lot of things going all at one time. In fact, I'm just kind of multitasking as I'm doing all this kind of stuff right here. But what art does and what music does, particularly when you're trying to learn an instrument, it forces you to focus on one thing. You can't be watching TV and playing guitar. You have to focus on what you're doing. You have to focus on, and music is one of those. The easiest illustration, I guess, is one of those things that that separates you from like you're multitasking. And I think that's good for people, by the way. And I think it's good for you to like turn off the damn computer and go outside and go fishing, right? Focus on something else, and to the exclusion of all else. I think human beings have become so scattered in our attentions and our peripheral attentions and everything else that's going on in our multitasking, that it's like that's normal operating procedures. And it's interesting that only until like say 1998, when we didn't have the internet, or we didn't have phones, or we didn't have the same kind of, I mean, multitasks, yeah, but we didn't have the same kind of distractions that we do now. There was a time where we didn't think the way that we think right now. And I don't think we've realized just what we've lost as a result of that. Bash Trifun says, great content, Rollo. Just watched the MLD video about George Bruno saying that the red pill is filled with angry guys. Actually, that was an old video that he did that his guys just released. Yeah, I saw that too. And again, another guy saying, oh, they're just they're radicalizing. These guys are radicalizing. It's funny is that he did that video that MLD was criticizing a while ago. like I think in 2019, and I was getting this from guys like Jack Murphy were saying, don't you think that the red pill is going to radicalize these guys and they're going to go nuts? And I'm looking at like the riots right now in Portland that's going on for like that have been going on since the beginning of May. But it's the red pill that's radicalizing the young men of today. Good one, man. That did not age well. It is not me that's radicalizing. It's not the red pill that's radicalizing young men. Hopeless, lost boys, young men. I'll let you guys, you figure it out, right? You connect the dots. Who do you think is radicalizing the young men that are in Portland that are pretending like they're like medieval warriors smashing shields and clubs at each other right now? At what point do you just go get a gun? Really? I mean, at what point do the bullets really start flying? I think that is a bigger statement right now. The fact that there hasn't been like automatic weapon fire at any of these yet. That tells you the state of the United States. If it was Syria, yeah, the missiles would be flying at each other, right? There would be gas. There'd be chemical weapons used, and it didn't take that long for them to get to that, right? It didn't take for them long to get to the point where they're shooting. It's a shooting war. But in the United States, stop it! You stop it! No, you stop it! That's who radicalized who, dude. It wasn't the red pill that radicalized these guys. Sorry, go back to the drawing board, come back and tell me how angry I am. Albert Ross. Hi, Rollo, found you via Royce. Oh, good. Wow. Really? You must have been going to the archives over at chateauartiste.org, which is where the archives are, before it was shut down. Oh, okay. Do you happen to know if he is still posting somewhere? He is on Gab, and I know he started a new account. I think somebody called Chateau Artiste is on Twitter now as a brand new Twitter account. The people who are Chateau Artiste are on Gab right now, gab.com, or it's the sort of the Twitter alternative. I know he's there. He decided not to reestablish the old site. He was done once it got kicked. And that's another thing that gets me is, did he really get kicked? Or did he just say, you know what, I'm tired of this crap? And then decided to play the card of, oh man, WordPress booted me, because WordPress has never even said 2 words to me about my content. And maybe that's because I'm not into ethno-nationalism or doing the kind of political and racial stuff that he does. Maybe it's true. I don't know. I don't believe that Rush's books got banned on Amazon. I think he dropped them himself and then made it look like he was doing. I think probably what he would have liked to have done is to tell everybody that he took down his books because he had this religious conversion. And I think he was kind of waffling back in October or November of 2018, which is when his books first got banned, according to him. And then he decided to dump. He couldn't get payment through PayPal anymore. At least that's what he was saying. Honestly, I think he was just sort of trying to find some sort of rationale to sort of justify like his new branding, which is now I'm a Christian that lives in my mom's basement in the mountains somewhere with long hair and a beard. Let's see. Oh, sorry guys. I know I was muted. You guys, all you guys like Harry Butthole, Elf, all you guys who said you're muted and you gave me like $5 to tell me that I was muted. I promise you I will take all your money and donate it to Crazy. That's on me. That's on me. Icarus times 2, I guess, says typical straw man argument. Yes, always. And he was talking about Dr. Vaknin's thing. Alpha Mailed said, MGTOW and other butchered the red pill. Isn't it better to call it evolutionary psychology instead of the red pill? Yes and no, because, and I'll tell you why. Because a red pill is a sort of this it's a comprehensive term. So it's comprehensive in the way that it is red pill as far as intersexual dynamics. I think I've said this before. As far as intersexual dynamics go, and we're going to call it red pill, it is waking up to how intersexual dynamics really are. We couldn't have this unplugging prior to the internet. We couldn't. I mean, we could, but you would have to have somebody who really did the homework, right? You'd have somebody have to go and like get Encyclopedia Britannica and live in a library and try to figure things out. The red pill is an internet creation because it had to be. There's no way you could have access to the kind of information that you can get on the internet. So that's why I keep saying we're on the cutting edge. This is the avant-garde. Red pill is the avant-garde, because we never had access to the kinds of information that we have. So what is red pill? Shouldn't it just be called evolutionary psychology? No, but evolutionary psychology is part of the red pill. Psychology, evolutionary biology should be part of it too. Sociology, even evolutionary sociology, there is actually one called that. That should be part of it. Psychology in general, sociology, anthropology, evolutionary anthropology should be a part of it. You can even put neurology. I was reading a story just the other day. I think I mentioned it on here. Is that a woman's body, a woman's egg will select sperm from different men. So what it doesn't actually select, but it will slow the swim of one of the sperm it doesn't want, and it will allow the other one to swim faster than the one that it does want. So there's only one reason that could be an evolutionary thing, right? Because there's going to be two different sperm at the fertility site. What does that say about your promiscuity thing? Even in the 50s, that didn't change, Mr. Vaknin, Dr. Vaknin. I was just reading that. So even like even endocrinology should really be part of the red pill. That's why I keep saying it's a praxology. It's not just one thing. So yeah, evolutionary psychology is definitely a building block of red pill praxology, but it's not the only building block. Sam Whiskey says, "Hey Rollo, you got respect for saving men's lives. Thank you, and also for being Thundar the Bear." Yeah, Ukla the Mock. Maybe maybe I should change my name to Ukla the Mock sometime and see if you guys notice. Max Gerasimov says, "Red pill used to make me angry because Rollo's words always were right, but at some point I embraced it." Thank you. Well, good for you. Thanks for coming around, and thank you for those 700 rupees. I think is that Russian rupees. Jeremiah, I have never had the experience of understanding everyone's currency like all over the world until I started doing this. Jeremiah Yeoman says, "Hello from Springfield, Missouri. Hey, I'm a widower. She's passed away 1/13 to 19. I was 20 years older than her, together for 12 years. Oh, good. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. Obviously it does happen. You know, it's funny is that guys who are a guy like who is it? Keanu Reeves can get with this old woman and we go, oh, it's an age appropriate relationship. He's 53 or 57 or whatever he is, and she's 46, and of course she looks like she's like 10 years older than he is. But we praise him for that. But you go and you have a guy who's 20, or excuse me, you got a guy who is 60 and he's getting it with like a 25-year-old. Then we think that's perversion. Well, because that goes against a gynocentric social order. It goes against what's in the best interest of women. Because a 60-year-old should not be getting with a 25-year-old. What could they possibly share in common? Banging, maybe, and money. Like when I saw, was it Scott Adams and his just absolute smoke show of a wife? Well, now a wife, but his girlfriend and now a wife. When you saw that, women in particular were throwing rocks at him, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like getting with your grandfather. What's wrong with you?" But aren't you the one that says love conquers all? Like, oh, but we're all the same, right? We just have different things dangling between our legs, man. That's all. You wouldn't have a problem with that. There wouldn't be an age appropriate thing if we weren't different. Albert Ross says, what is the candelabra behind him? I don't know. He did it in his, I don't know where, maybe does he live in Russia? I think it was his like dining room or something. Thomas Menuer. Someone's going to have to tell me how to say Menuier in French. I think that's Menuet. I don't want to call him manure. Sam Vaknin often faultily, I guess, prioritizes transient human psychology over human nature. Yeah, I see that. Gender hormone differentials, physical attributes, etc. are real. And so are the emotions, the emotional state, the way we process information, instinct, emotion, and reason versus instinct, reason, emotion. Or innate, natural, male proclivities and female proclivities, and you will be a much well-rounded person once you accept those things. Again, from Thomas, he says, it's easy to see why Sam Vaknin prefers to prioritize social engineering and psychology over human nature. He's a narcissist, a cult leader, someone who enjoys brainwashing over timeless facts. I don't know anything about the guy personally. I do know that he has 100 and what? How many does he have? Brainwashing over time is my bad. I don't know what his sub count is. 117, didn't I say that? I don't think that qualifies him as a cult leader, but I don't know. I don't know enough about him, but I'll take your word for it, man. King George says, just paying tuition to the channel. Well, thank you, King George. Your devotion to put it out consistent, authentic content is appreciated. Yeah, cheerio. Thank you. Pip, pip. YOLO says, hi, is it any connection between, is there? YOLO, there's a great movie. It's called what is it? Is it Murder by Death or what's it's a murder mystery. I forget what is it, Murder by Death or something. But there's a line in there, and I forget who says it, but it's pronouns. Learn your goddamn pronouns. Hi, is it any connection? Is there any? I'm going to correct you. Is there any connection between the feminine imperative and support for homosexuals and immigration in the Western countries? In Western countries. Thank you. Yes, there is. I'm going to refer you to a essay because it's easier for me to do this at this late hour. YOLO. I have an essay called "War Brides," the War Brides of Europe, and I talk about this exact same thing. So go look that up. It's called "The War Brides of Europe." Search that on the Rational Mail on my blog, and you'll get a better answer than I can give you in the next 5 minutes. Sam Whiskey says he's making Jordan Peterson look good. Yes, I think I put that one on there. Vince C says, for the education that we should have received in school. Well, thank you for your $5. Thank you very much for your $5. Greg, maybe I'll read the rest of this in the Queen's English. Grego says, women. Should I sound like Ozzy? Should I imitate Ozzy? Women are the breadwinners in 68% of homes don't. Sorry, I can't do that. It'll actually scramble my brain. We are the breadwinners in 68% of homes. Oh, though I forgot, we are single moms. Yeah. Actually, they're not 68%, so it's much lower than 68%. Jeremiah Yeoman says, I'm dating a woman who is 20 and I am 53. Well done. Now, here's the thing. When I was saying that it's not common for a guy who is like in his 50s to be banging a girl who's 20 years old, that's great. But guess what? You probably wouldn't be doing that unless you've read The Rational Male, unless you had some game, unless you had some formal understanding of intersexual dynamics. It's not because of what Dr. Vaknin was talking about, which is, they're compelled. They're societally compelled. No, they're not societally compelled. They have no other options. Well, for women anyways, like for women, they're societally compelled to, they can only get with guys who are of their age or what, like hypogamy. Hypogamy is the biggest bullshit that I've ever heard. It's like, it's as if there is some natural, there's some evolved firmware, there's some evolved dynamic that predisposes, men in particular, because that's the way that Socrates uses this, is like hypogamy is, men have to become hypogamous and women are hypergamous. No, only women are hypergamous. Men are selected. Men will bang anything. If you want to call that hypogamy, then great. There's your new term. Greg, good for you. Take that and write a book about it. But you're making it up. Okay. So for men's mating strategy is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. This is why pornography is a big deal, because it satisfies that. There is no filter for pornography. It is unlimited. It is access. It is sex. That's your natural impulse. That's your instinct as a guy. You are selected. Spread the seed. You have the potential of impregnating, if you could, millions of women with one shot of jizz. Okay, that's what you could do. And so what happens? So the biological realities modify the psychological realities, which modify the sociological realities. Does that sound like blank slate equalism? No. It sounds like we're going from an evolved dynamic to a personal psychological dynamic to a social dynamic, which is the way human society has worked since we were on the savannas in a billion BC. It's not hard. This is not rocket scientist. I'm the rational male because I'm just like connecting dots right here. It's not because it's like, well, where's your proof? My proof is just follow the reason, follow the logistics here. So it's either that or it's this fiendish plot by patriarchal overlords to crush women and just keep them in chains so they can be our sex slaves and our reproductive, breeding cows, right? No, that's the natural progression. And, I wanted to end with this, but I'll keep going here because I can whip through these really quick. Rollo Tomassi is my favorite. This is nobody says Rollo Tomassi is my favorite, my most favorite hentai villain. Thank you. Is there a hentai villain for Rollo Tomassi? I think there is, actually. I think somebody has shown me not the hentai itself, but the character. CJW says, "Tell him, Rollo." I will. Tyler Sample, thank you for that $5 Canadian. Simple Fly, who is a clinical psychologist. Thank you for your work, brother. Please please speak to the point of moving anger to self-improvement. Okay, I will. I promise I'll do that on the next show because we're almost at 3 hours right now. I think maybe I might do this on Patreon. If you're a Patreon sub, or if you haven't, and why wouldn't you be a Patreon sub when it's so easy to follow this link below, right there? Follow that link. That's where you'll find it. It's very easy. Patreon.com/TheRationalMale. I have 2 levels of membership there right now. And I think on my Patreon show, what I'm going to do is I think I will talk about crossing the abyss. Would that be a good one? I think you probably like that one. That will be an exclusive for my Patreons. That's exactly what you're asking me to do. Bulldog Mindset. He was cool enough to give me $50 because he knows I'm going to give it to the dog. I'm going to throw it to the dogs. Just a shout out for good live stream. Very important. Men understand the red pill is just based in pragmatism. Yes, it's praxology and it's pragmatism. And is that it? No, I got a few more. Hold on. I'll get to you too. I'll get to all of you eventually. A elf gave me 2 euros. No, 2 euro, 2 pounds. 2 British pounds. So I have to read it in a British accent. It is Sandman and TFM are shills. Maybe Sandman. But TFM is just TFM. TFM would do this even if he didn't get paid. I'm confident. Boy, it's thundering. We must be having thunderstorms now. I've gone too long. The gods want me to stop. There's thunder going on outside here. I still have a lot of respect for TFM. Not so much Sandman, but I think, and I'm not, that's not a dig on him or anything. It's just, I don't really listen to Sandman. TFM, I'm actually, I think once I get done with book 4, I'll probably do an interview or a show with Sandman, or not with Sandman, with TFM, Turd Flinging Monkey. So TFM, if you're watching or if one of your fans is watching, let him know that I am probably going to hit him up in the next 6 weeks. Hint, nudge. Deborah gave me 100 Canadian bucks. Is that what that is? CAS. I don't know what that comes out to. He says, feed the dogs, get their wives, and love your God. There you go. Thank you. All right. The dogs will appreciate it. Let's see. Atham gave me a sticker with a little kitty cat on it for $2, which you can't see because I can't show those stickers in StreamYard, but I can see it because my good friend Sam Bada gives them to me. Vision gave me $5. Vision. He's actually my favorite Avenger, by the way. Commodore. The Commodore says, if we have a dollar crisis and the economy has another depression, maybe it will force a reset in gynocentrism. Possibly. It could possibly do that, but unlikely. Because the economy now is not what the economy was. Aelf Nemesis says, have you encountered research showing remnant DNA prior to sexual partners? Yes, it's called microchimerism. I have seen it. I'm not going to do a full show on it because the jury is still out on all of that. I understand why guys like to beat themselves up. Well, if she's had sex with all these guys, then it doesn't matter if I'm the father because I'll have the DNA of all the 10 guys that she banged prior to me. Okay, I'm not saying it's not a thing. Could be a thing. It really could be a thing. I'm not saying it's not. But I think that we make I think the reason why it's like microchimerism, I'm not saying it's not. But I'm not saying it is because I don't know enough yet. I think the jury's still out. I think we're still kind of figuring this whole thing out because I've read stuff that says it's bullshit and I've read stuff that says it's for real. Regardless, once that got in the MGTOW community or the doom, I shouldn't say MGTOW, the doom pill community. Oh man, whip me. I want self-flagellation, microchimerism. It's hopeless. I'm dead. You know, that's the okay, even if it's true, okay, so what? What are you going to do about it? Nothing. I think I would be a little bit more. I don't know why people didn't lose their minds on that very scientific, well documented, well studied research on how women's ovum slows down one man's sperm and speeds up another, or like opens the way for the other that it prefers and has what for chemically protein wise. I don't know how it does it, but there's some kind of chemical signature will slow down one sperm and the other one will sail on by it. It's not that it makes it faster. It's just it slows one down so the preferred one can come in. So first of all, why is it preferred? And second of all, if women aren't as promiscuous as men, why would that be an evolutionary adaptation? Those are the questions you will not hear anywhere else except for this place right here. You will only hear that here. Maybe on Joker's channel because now he's going to copy that. I'm looking at you. I saw that, by the way, Joker. People think I got a problem with Joker. I don't have a problem with Joker at all. If I had a problem with Joker, I wouldn't Joker. I wouldn't fuck around with him, which I do. Alex F. Did I get down that? Alex F. Wait. Hold on. There it is. I can put it up. Alex F, $20, Canadian $20, says, made 2 of my past SOs, significant. Stop it with the significant other. Stop calling her significant other. Call her your girlfriend. Call her a plate. I don't care. Stop using the term significant other. That's the language of blank slate equalism. That is the language of wokeness. Have Smash Mortons. Have Smash Mortons. Okay. So you fucked your girlfriend. Thanks. Made 2 of my past girlfriends have Smash. Okay. I get what you're saying. Because my gut said on neither of those occasions was that child mine. Still feel some guilt. Please help. Help what? Feel guilt. What did you? So we'll get to that. Hold on. P.S. Just became a Patreon. Thank you. Okay. Alex, I'm going to do I think I've decided I'm going to do a show based on, God damn it, I'm going way over today. You guys are killing me. Stop. No more. Don't give me any more super chats as much as I'd like the money. So what you're saying is like, should I feel guilty about having talked my girlfriend into an abortion? Remember this. That girl has the ultimate decision over whether or not she has a kid or not. You want to talk about moral agency or just even practical, pragmatic agency? In this day and age, ever since Roe v. Wade, women have the control over that. You do not have any control over that. You might have been able to influence that. She might have already thought, I really want to abort this kid. And you said, well, maybe it's not the right time. Oh, maybe that was enough to be the catalyst to push her over the edge. But ultimately, she's the one that makes that decision. Now, you knocked her up. Okay, got it. Should you be more responsible? Yes. Stop it. Wrap the rascal. Do whatever you got to do. The reason why you got into that twice is because you made some stupid decisions. Always control the birth. That is iron rule number 5, 6. No, it's not 6. Number 5. Number 5. Always control the birth. Because once the sperm leaves your body, you are powerless. Because the next time you get Smash Mortons or whatever the hell, Smash Motions, then be careful. Right? All I can say is just be careful. Should I feel bad? Should I still feel some guilt? Well, yeah, you should. You should feel some guilt about that. I'm not going to say you shouldn't. The real question is, does she feel any guilt over it? So, or they feel any guilt? Because they're the ones that are making the decision. Her body, herself. You know what? That's cool. I can do that now. When women fight tooth and nail for the right to abortion, they, as far as I'm concerned, they relinquish the right to like throw it back on guys. Like, oh, you shouldn't have fucked her then. You should have kept it in your pants, man. It doesn't matter. Once a sperm leaves your body, you are effectively powerless. So when women say, well, I want the government out of my uterus. I want you're a man. You don't get any say in this. Okay, well, if that's the case, then if I don't get any say and you're saying that I have no authority with everything else, but in this case, no authority, I don't get to say one way or the other. I'm a man, so I'm effectively erased and disqualified from any part of this conversation. If that's the case, then you don't have the right to tell me that I should have kept it in my pants. Because ultimately, you're the one making the decision. You're the one that gets to decide what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. In fact, you can lie about it and get away with it, just like that one girl who kind of screwed over Jay Cook, right? Until he figured it out. She and his mom tried to dissuade him from having that test. So should you feel guilt about it? Well, you probably should, because it was a human life. But should you feel guilt about it as far as the decision is concerned? No, because it's not your decision. If she wanted to have it or she wanted to kill it and you wanted to have it, there's nothing you could have done about it. So really, I'm not trying to be like a moral relativist, because I think I do value human life. I think that should be a thing, right? I mean, ethically, morally, if I'm going to talk about morals and stuff like that, then yeah, you should feel a little guilty about that. You should feel guilty enough not to do it again. How's that? We'll leave it there. Albert Ross says, ants and wasps, etc., have evolved to effectively do without mates. Oh, good. Maybe we could all be like ants and wasps. We're practically there anyways, right? We're drones, workers, drones, and queens. Could human race be moving towards doing the same? No, because we're mammals and we're far more complex than those insects are. I don't know. Do you think ants are making choices for themselves? Do you think they have an individual? Do they have a soul? I'll be like the ant. Don't think what is it? To defeat the bug, we must think like the bug. I'm sorry. God, I butchered that. To defeat the bug, we must understand the bug. Have you ever met one? What movie? Super chat, first super chat ever. Thank you, my friend, whose name Yunamusha77 says, hi, Rollo. I decided to show my support by buying book 1. Thank you. Through 3. Good. You can also buy them all in a 3-pack now, too, thanks to Amazon. Question, you think the Truman Show would be off the matrix of red pill? Yeah. Well, I mean, anything that sort of wakes you up from this stupor, I guess, could be a comparison. Atham. Go back. Where's Atham? There he is. Let's annoy Rollo. Oh, good. Okay. She belongs to the streets. No, yeah, thank you. No, she belongs to the seas. If she's fat, like a fat girl, like that, the one that the Joker that I was ribbing Joker about, she belongs to the seas. She doesn't belong to the streets. She belongs to the seas. Snake the Jake the Snake Pliskin says, just bought your 3 books. Thank you very much. Okay, and thank you for being the last super chat that I'm going to take today. If I didn't get to yours, so sorry. If I didn't get to yours, become a Patreon member and then I'll get to yours. There you go. All right, that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I really feel like I could have gone even another 4 hours on this, but I'm not going to make you suffer for that long. So please show your support. If you want to make a donation to Gray Save, it is right. Oh, sorry. Where's my thing? Okay. Yeah. Starship Troopers. You win. I'll give you $2. Where did it go? Where's my banners? There's my banners. All right. Here's Gray Save. One last time. Or that's Gray Save. This is Gray Save. There you go. If you would be so kind as to make a donation to Gray Save, that would be much appreciated. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. I might push that over to Patreon unless something crazy happens. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, please become one. And you can find that right here, which is easy enough, which is www.patreon.com, The Rational Male. I have 2 levels of support. I have the regular $5 one, and I've got a $15 one now, which gives you access to all the archives of my old videos, which will be up this week. So that said, thank you very much, and I will see you guys on Wednesday. If anything special happens, just check my Twitter feed, and I'll talk to you then.